Chapter 1053. 1053 Nirvana Pill, World City. Taking the Nirvana Pill could give a warrior's bloodline a chance to undergo Nirvana. After Nirvana, one's bloodline would have a chance to upgrade. However, the upgrade level was not fixed. It depended on one's potential and luck. Some people could advance 1 level, some could advance 2 levels, and some could even advance higher. Heavens! This kind of medicinal pill was seriously too heaven-defying. It was very difficult to level up one's bloodline after birth. The bloodline of the 9 dragons was a special case. In addition, Xian Yanqing's bloodline was special. With the help of Emperor Tsang, he achieved the nirvana of his bloodline and evil levered. Throughout his journey, Lu Ming had only seen Xian Yanqing's nirvana bloodline upgrade once. He had not seen or even heard of it. And this nirvana elixir was actually so heaven-defying. If this news were to spread, it would probably cause chaos in the world and set off endless waves. Think about it, if a martial artist with a 9th-level king bloodline were to take the nirvana elixir, even if he were to advance by 1 level, he would most likely be promoted to a divine bloodline and have the qualification to break through to the spiritual god realm. For some martial artists with divine bloodlines, if they could upgrade their bloodline by 1 or 2 levels, their talent would undoubtedly be higher and they would be able to go further in the future. This was especially so for those supreme geniuses who had awakened divine level 6, 7, or even 8. If they were to consume it, they might even be able to advance to the highest divine level, level 9. Just how alluring and heaven-defying was this? It would be strange if people didn't go crazy after knowing about it. However, according to the records, every warrior only had 1 chance. After taking the nirvana pill once, the second time would have no effect. It would create resistance, but it would not reduce the value of the nirvana pill. Back then, Cold Blood Hall made a big move and said that a treasure had been taken away. Zhou Xian happened to be there, could it be? At this moment, Lu Ming thought of many things. They had met Zhou Xian in the ancient herb garden, but she did not want to work with Lu Ming. She wanted to work alone. Later on, Cold Blood Hall seemed to be looking for a treasure in the ancient herb garden, but it was taken away. It led to a large-scale operation by Cold Blood Hall. They blocked the teleportation array and even besieged them on the plane, demanding them to hand over their storage rings. There, Lu Ming met Zhou Xian again and saved her. Logically speaking, Zhou Xian's cultivation level was not high. In such a situation, it was very likely that she would hand over her storage ring to save her life. However, Zhou Xian did not do so. She had no intention of handing over her storage ring. At that time, Lu Ming did not think too much about it. However, when he saw the pill formula of the nirvana elixir, he could not help but link all of these together. Perhaps Zhou Xian had obtained this elixir recipe from the ancient medicine garden, and the reason why Cold Blood Hall had mobilized so many people was most likely to find this elixir recipe. He did not expect that it would eventually fall into Lu Ming's hands. Although the pill formula was not of much use to Lu Ming as he had the 9 dragons bloodline and did not need the nirvana pill to improve his bloodline, he was still very excited. To him, although it was not of much use, he had family and friends. This kind of pill formula would be of great use to his family and friends. However, the spirit herbs required to refine the nirvana pill are too rare. Lu Ming sighed again. Although the nirvana elixir was heaven-defying, the materials and spiritual herbs it required were extremely rare. It required dozens of spiritual herbs and materials. Most of the supplementary materials were the top grade of level 8, and 7 of the main materials were level 9. Moreover, they were the best of level 9 materials. Lu Ming was speechless. It was extremely difficult to collect these materials. Forget it. There's no rush. Take it slow. Lu Ming smiled. He memorized the pill formula of the nirvana elixir and kept it in the mountain and river diagram. Then, he opened the secret manual of the illusionary breath technique and started reading. Next, Lu Ming cultivated the illusionary breath technique as he moved forward. Time passed day by day. It had been a month since Lu Ming left the Zhou family. One day, Lu Ming arrived at a huge city. This city was incomparably majestic, filled with vicissitudes and a grand and domineering aura. On the city gate, there were 3 big words World City. I actually came to World City. Lu Ming was slightly stunned. The World City was next to the World Academy. It was one of the 10 ancient cities of the central continent and had a long history. The Tianxia Academy was located northwest of the Sky Eagle Castle. Lu Ming had unknowingly crossed the Sky Eagle Castle's territory and arrived at the Tianxia Academy. Since he was here, Lu Ming naturally had to go and take a look. After entering World City, he realized that it was really bustling with people coming and going. Why are there so many young Heaven's favorites? Lu Ming was a little surprised. On the streets, he could see young geniuses walking by from time to time in groups of 3 to 5. Each of them had an imposing appearance, beautiful looks, and the potential of dragons and phoenixes. They were definitely powerful elites. Lu Ming could sense that many of them had awakened divine bloodlines. Although the central continent had many outstanding talents and many times more Heaven's favorites than the East continent, it was still unrealistic to meet a group of divine-level Heaven's favorites in a big city. Could it be that something big has happened in Tianxia City or Tianxia Academy that has gathered so many geniuses? Lu Ming made a guess.
Who is that?
Lu Ming was suddenly stunned. He discovered 2 familiar faces. Blood Sword 1 and Corpse Battle. The Heavenly Corpse Sex Blood Sword had appeared in the central continent, in the World City, in a battle with a corpse. This surprised Lu Ming. Interesting. The most powerful sovereign of the Heavenly Corpse sect is here. Did the Divine Emperor and the others come? Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. Blood Sword 1 and Corpse Warrior did not notice Lu Ming. Instead, they walked into a shop. Lu Ming came to a secret place, and his body began to change. After a while, he turned into a dark-faced, honest young man. Then he activated the illusionary breath technique, and his aura changed. Now, no matter how familiar they were with Lu Ming, they would not be able to recognize him when they stood in front of him. Lu Ming smiled and strode down the street. In front of him, Shuejian and Corpse Warrior walked out of the shop and walked past Lu Ming, but they did not react at all. He completely treated Lu Ming as a stranger. Lu Ming smiled in satisfaction and walked into a restaurant. Did you guys hear? A month ago, the Cold Blood Hall disciple also broke through to the spiritual god realm.
What?
Blood Luo Zi had also broken through? Shui Luo Zi is not very strong among the second-grade Heaven's favorites, but I didn't expect him to have a breakthrough. It seems that most of the second-grade Heaven's favorites have broken through to the spiritual god realm. The top 5 young warriors have all broken through to the spiritual god realm a year ago. Now, even the second-grade Heaven's favorites have broken through to the spiritual god realm. From now on, the world will belong to the younger generation. The younger generation will be ushering in the era of spiritual gods. In the same era, there are actually so many young geniuses who have entered the spiritual god realm. This is unbelievable. Lu Ming heard a discussion not long after he entered the restaurant. Lu Ming nodded to himself. It had been more than a year since the ancient herb garden. It was normal for those second-grade geniuses to step into the spiritual god realm one after another. After all, those geniuses had powerful forces supporting them. They did not have to worry about resources at all. Lu Ming could not compare to them. Chapter 1054. 1054 AO2 is suppressed. This era is truly a great era, not only our central continent. It is said that Northern Plains, Western Desert, and Southern Nether are all filled with geniuses and experts. Some time ago, a Heaven's favorite from Northern Plains entered Central Continent and challenged one of the top 5 young warriors, Yang Patian. That battle could be said to be a peak battle, but in the end, it ended in a draw. I've also heard about that battle. It was truly shocking to think that Northern Plains would have a Heaven's favorite at the level of the top 5 young warriors. Not only Northern Plains. In this period of time, Western Desert has sent young saint monks into Central Continent, displaying their unparalleled battle strength. There is also a terrifying dark child from Southern Nether. According to reliable sources, Western Desert and Southern Nether both have geniuses that are not weaker than the top 5 young warriors. Upon hearing this, Lu Ming raised his eyebrows and was secretly shocked. Who would have thought that Southern Nether, Northern Plains, and Western Desert would all have heaven's favorites at the level of the top 5 young warriors? The future was bound to be even more intense and brilliant. What about the East Continent? Are there any powerful heaven's favorites in the East Continent? Not the East Barren. The reason why it has the words barren is that it is a savage land. Since ancient times, it has been the weakest of the 5 territories. How can there be any geniuses? That's true. I heard that there are only 2 people in the East Continent who are good. One is called Lu Ming, and the other is called Dishan. They should be second-grade geniuses. The others are not good. They are just clowns who are not worth mentioning. That's true. I heard that there was a great war in the East Continent, and Lu Ming was trapped. I guess he's in trouble. Now, there's only one emperor god left who can be used. What's there to talk about in a savage land? Let's drink. A burst of laughter came from the surroundings. When they talked about the Eastern Barren Territory, their words were full of contempt. A bunch of popinjays dare to talk about the world's heroes. At this time, a cold snort sounded and spread throughout the restaurant. Everyone's gazes turned to a corner of the restaurant. There were 2 figures there, a man and a woman. The man was extremely burly and majestic, more than 2 meters tall, with bulging muscles. The woman's figure was graceful and beautiful. Her face was unparalleled, and she was devastatingly beautiful. Ao 2, Feng Xian. Lu Ming was stunned. He recognized the 2 of them. They were the 2 most powerful heaven's favorites of the Heavenly Demon Valley in the East Barren. Oh, so, you're considered a hero? The people they had been talking about were 3 young men, with swords on their backs. They were all dressed in white swordsman robes, and were obviously from the same force. At this moment, one of the young men with a sword on his back looked at Ao 2 with a cold smile. I don't know if I'm a hero or not, but I can easily suppress you. Ao 2 laughed coldly. He was extremely confident. In the Eastern Barren Territory, he was second only to Lu Ming and the Emperor and deities. He was at the top and few people could defeat him. Naturally, he was confident. Even when he came to the Central Continent, he was still confident that he would not be weaker than others. Suppress me with a single palm? I've never seen you before. Are you from the East Continent? The young man asked. That's right, Ao 2 from the East Barren. Ao 2 said. Trash from the East Continent. You're just a bug, and you dare to say that you can defeat me? You're really a big shot. The young man with the sword on his back shouted coldly. What did you just say? Ao 2 rose to his feet in a fit of rage, and a cold, killing intent shot out from his eyes. A violent aura burst forth, and the entire restaurant was enveloped by a terrifying pressure. The sword-carrying youth actually dared to call him a reptile, which made him want to kill him. The young man sneered. He pointed his finger forward like a sword and cut through Ao 2's aura. Let's go out and fight. I'll let you know if you're trash or not. The young man with the sword on his back stepped out and flew into the sky. Ao 2 also stepped out. That insect from the East Continent. How dare he fight with senior brother Song? He really doesn't know what's good for him. Let's go out and take a look. The other 2 young men laughed and followed. Then, Feng Xian also followed him out. That's the Heaven's Martial Sword Sect's supreme talent. That guy just now seems to be Song Fei, the 3rd-ranked supreme talent of the Heaven's Martial Sword Sect. That flood dragon from the East Continent is going to fight Song Fei. Interesting, let's go and see. Let's go. Everyone flew out of the restaurant and stood in the air to watch. Lu Ming followed the crowd and flew out of the restaurant. In the sky, Ao 2 and Song Fei were confronting each other. The powerful aura they released attracted many people. That's a flood dragon from the East Continent. Do you think he can win? That's impossible. Song Fei is the third heaven's favorite of the Heavenly Sword faction. He is extremely powerful. That dragon is no match for him. Many people were discussing. There were 18 overlord forces in the Central Continent. Of course, there were also strong and weak overlord forces. The Heavenly Martial Sword School was one of the top forces in the Central Continent. It was stronger than the Floating Mountain, Cold Blood Hall, and Sky Eagle Fort. It had many experts and geniuses. As the third heaven's pride of the Heavenly Martial Sword School, it was needless to say that it was powerful.
Boom. Boom.
Their auras rumbled in the sky, creating a terrifying whirlwind. Kill. AO2 was the first to attack. He transformed into his true form, revealing a flood dragon that was several hundred meters long. His entire body was shimmering with a golden light, as if he was made of gold. Golden storm splitting slash. AO2 roared. He opened his mouth, and 9 beams of dark golden light shot out. They cut through the air and flew towards Song Fei. Buzz. A sword cry resounded, and a sword light burst out like a bolt of lightning, tearing through the void and cutting through everything. Wherever the sword light passed, AO2's 9 beams of golden light were all shattered. However, the sword chi also dissipated. Golden Gilded Dragon Claw. AO2's flood dragon claws turned pure gold. They were sparkling and resplendent, and they emitted terrifying ripples. With a single claw, space was torn apart. It was extremely terrifying. AO2's level had reached the great circle of the spirit embryo realm. When he went all out, he was comparable to a spirit god. However, Song Fei's cultivation was also at the great circle of the spirit embryo realm. You have some skills, take this.
Go.
Song Fei shouted, and his bloodline appeared. It was a Silavir sword with 7 golden chakras. World-breaking sword. Song Fei transformed into a combat sword. The Silavir white combat sword emitted a dazzling light as it slashed down toward AO2. The combat sword and AO2's gilded dragon claw collided. The sky was filled with golden and Silavir light, so dazzling that many people could not open their eyes. When the light dissipated, AO2 was seen retreating frantically. A deep sword wound had appeared on his dragon claw. His scales had been shattered, and blood was flowing out. Buzz. The Silavir sword slashed down again, and endless sword chi scattered. It was extremely terrifying, and even the space was left with deep marks. AO2 roared and fought with all his might, but Song Fei's sword chi was extremely sharp and could cut through anything. It broke through AO2's attack and his defense, leaving sword wounds on his body. AO2 was completely at a disadvantage. Before long, a dozen sword wounds appeared on his body, each of which was several meters long. Blood gushed out of them, and some of them even fell to the ground. This blood contains the bloodline of a true dragon.
Keep it.
Someone was unkind enough to collect all the blood left by AO2, which made AO2 roar in anger. However, he was no match for Song Fei even if he tried his best. Your flood dragon is not bad. I just happen to be lacking a mount. From now on, you will be my mount. Song Fei said coldly. The sword light became even more terrifying. Chapter 1055. 1055 Chapter 1055 Myriad Image Jade Wall. Don't even think about it. AO2 roared in rage, feeling extremely aggrieved. He, AO2, had more than 70% of the true dragon's bloodline. He had been surrounded by halos since he was a child and was the #1 genius of the Heavenly Demon Valley. He was known to be able to compete with the Emperor gods. There were few in the younger generation in the East Baron who could be on par with him. Although he was defeated by Lu Ming in the Battle of Providence, only Lu Ming and the Emperor God were above him in the entire East Baron. The only people who could be on par with him were Blood Sword 1 and Feng Xian. He was still a peerless genius with a brilliant halo and was high above. However, in the central continent, a young heaven's favorite he met casually suppressed him and even wanted to capture him as a mount. At this moment, his self-confidence took a heavy blow. Whoosh! Whoosh! Beams of Asilavir sword-light cut through the sky and slashed toward AO2. Even though AO2 had the bloodline of a true dragon, he was still unable to defend himself. He was completely suppressed and torn apart by the terrifying sword chi. Surrender and be my mount. I won't kill you. Otherwise, you'll die today. Song Fei's cold voice came from the Asilavir sword. Don't even think about it. AO2 roared. With his pride, he would rather die than be Song Fei's mount. Then go to hell. The Asilavir combat sword bloomed with thousands of rays of light. Sword chi tore through the air as it slashed toward AO2's head. AO2 retreated frantically, using all his strength to defend himself. However, he was still almost beheaded, leaving a deep wound on his neck. His body shrank rapidly, and he fled into the distance. You want to leave? Stay. Song Fei obviously had no intention of letting AO2 go. He chased after AO2. At this moment, the cry of a phoenix was heard. A divine bird that looked like a phoenix flew towards Song Fei. With a flap of its wings, flames filled the sky and spread towards Song Fei. Song Fei was shocked. Sword chi whistled and broke through the flames. However, this delay had allowed AO2 to rush into the distance and disappear without a trace. The phoenix-like divine bird had extreme speed. It flapped its wings and turned into a beam of light, flying into the distance. Song Fei shouted and chased after it, but after a while, he couldn't catch up. Lu Ming could clearly see that the phoenix-like divine bird was Feng Xian. She had the blood of the phoenix and was astonishingly fast. Song Fei returned to his human form and snorted, "What Dong Huang the heaven's favorite? He's just a piece of trash." After saying that, he flew back into the restaurant with the other two disciples of the heavenly martial sword faction and continued to eat and drink. In the crowd, Blood Sword and Corpse Warrior were also watching the battle. Their faces were ugly, but they didn't dare to make a sound. Song Fei's combat strength was shocking. Blood Sword knew that he was no match for Song Fei. I didn't expect there to be so many geniuses in the central continent. I heard that Song Fei is only the third heaven's favorite of the heavenly martial sword faction. Corpse Warrior sighed. The battle just now had shocked him. The central continent is indeed the center of the divine wilderness continent. There are so many geniuses. In the entire eastern wilderness, only Lu Ming and the Emperor God duo can defeat Song Fei. Blood Sword One nodded, and the two of them left. Lu Ming did not feel anything. He was not surprised by this result. AO2 and Song Fei were both third-grade heaven's favorites, but AO2 was only in the middle. Song Fei, on the other hand, was at the top of the third-grade heaven's favorites. He was close to some weaker second-grade heaven's favorites. AO2 was no match for him. Lu Ming also returned to the restaurant and continued to eat and drink. Very soon, he received some new information. The reason why so many talents gathered in Tianxia City was that the Tianxia Academy's Wanxiang Jade Wall would open in 3 days. The Tianxia Academy's Wanxiang Jade Wall was said to contain endless mysteries. If a warrior comprehended from it, he could obtain great opportunities and gain great benefits. There were even rumors that the Wanxiang Jade Wall contained a great secret, a divine treasure. However, it had not been opened for many years. The Tianxia Academy's Wanxiang Jade Wall had never been opened to the public before. This time, it suddenly announced to the world that it was willing to be open to the public. All the heroes in the world could freely visit and comprehend it. This news naturally attracted a large number of heaven's favorites. Wanxiang Jade Wall? Since we're here, we can't miss this. Lu Ming continued to eat and drink. The news that he heard next was not too important. He heard about which prodigies they were, how powerful they were, and which beauties were more beautiful. After finishing his meal, Lu Ming walked out of the restaurant and found an inn to stay in. 3 days passed by quickly. Lu Ming left the Tianxia city and rushed to the Tianxia Academy. He was not the only one. All the heaven's favorites stepped into the air and left. There were many of them. The sky was filled with rainbow lights like a meteor shower. Tianxia Academy was very close to Tianxia City, so they arrived not long after. Looking from afar, Lu Ming was a little shocked. A palace as white as jade was floating in the air, emitting a brilliant light. This palace was extremely huge, like a city in the sky. It seemed to be completely made of fine jade. This was the core of the Tianxia Academy. Under this palace was a misty, divine mountain. The spiritual qi was rich, spiritual herbs were everywhere, and spiritual beasts were flying. It was a scene of a fairyland. The endless divine mountains below and the white jade palace above formed the complete Tianxia Academy. However, only the core of the Tianxia Academy could enter the white jade palace. Naturally, Lu Ming and the rest could not enter. They landed outside the Tianxia Academy and walked along an ancient bluestone road. Soon, they saw a huge stone tablet with 4 big words written on it, Tianxia Academy. The words were bold and powerful, and at a glance, there was a terrifying majesty. It was said that these 4 words were left behind by a saint emperor of the ancient Saint dynasty, and they contained the will of the saint emperor. Tens of thousands of years ago, before the ancient Saint dynasty had declined and ruled the world, the Tianxia Academy was the place where the ancient Saint dynasty had nurtured its heroes. 4 generations, countless powerful cultivators had emerged from the Tianxia Academy. However, after the decline of the Xie clan of the ancient Saint dynasty, the Tianxia Academy became independent and became a dominant force. Passing by the stone tablet, there was a white jade staircase. Everyone climbed up the white jade staircase and came to a huge square. At this moment, the square was already packed with people. At a glance, there were probably more than 10,000 people, all of whom were geniuses. Everyone, the Wanxiang Jade Wall is in front.
Please follow me, he said.
A white-haired old man appeared and smiled. Then he flew forward, and everyone followed. After flying over dozens of mountain peaks, the terrain in front of them became flat. There were no mountains, only hills. On top of the hill, the clouds and mist blocked their view. Even with everyone's eyes, they could not see through it. A formation. Lu Ming's heart stirred. It was said that the Tianxia Academy was a force that cultivated both inscription and martial arts. There were strong cultivators who specialized in martial arts and strong cultivators who cultivated the way of inscription. There were even rumors that there were more than one emperor in the Tianxia Academy, but 2. One was the emperor of martial arts, and the other was the emperor of inscription.
Buzz, buzz,
buzz. With a flash, a total of 8 old men appeared. Including the one who led the way, there were 9 in total. The 9 old men floated in the air and began to inscribe runes. One by one, the runes seeped into the surrounding space.
Hoo-hoo.
The wind seemed to have started blowing, and the clouds and mist began to dissipate. Soon, the clouds and mist completely dissipated, and countless people looked at the scene in front of them in shock. Chapter 1056. 1056, Chapter 1056, Enlightenment. In front of him, countless jade walls were floating in the air. At a glance, it was densely packed with jade walls. Each jade wall seemed to be made of polished white jade, smooth as a mirror. They were suspended vertically in the air, and there was no end to them. This was the Wanxiang Jade Wall, which was very different from what he had imagined. In Lu Ming's imagination, the Wanxiang Jade Wall might be a huge piece of jade wall. He did not expect there to be so many pieces. This is the Wanxiang Jade Wall. There are mysteries on it. You can study it yourself, but you can't damage the Jade Wall. Otherwise, the Tianxia Academy won't be polite. The old man's last sentence caused everyone's hearts to tremble. Everyone nodded, and answered that they didn't dare to. Well, did you see that? In front of each jade wall, there is one or more jade platforms. Only by sitting cross-legged on the jade platforms can one gain enlightenment. The old man introduced. So that's what the jade platform is for. Lu Ming's heart stirred. In front of each jade wall, there was one to a few jade platforms suspended in the air. Lu Ming had noticed this a long time ago. It turned out that they were used for comprehension. In other words, only a few people could comprehend each piece of jade wall at the same time because the jade platform was very small and only one person could sit on it. All right, you guys can comprehend it on your own. The old man nodded and left with the other 8 old men.
Buzz. Whoosh.
As soon as the old man left, some people flew forward in search of the jade wall to comprehend. Lu Ming swept his gaze and discovered many familiar faces. Jing Conling, Chu Kuang, Zhang Wenjin, and Hai Ziming of the Floating Mountain Martial School were all present. In addition, he also saw Goddess Tan Xiang, Yin Bupo of the Sky Eagle Castle, the Cold Blood Hall's master, the other supreme talents of the Cold Blood Hall, and Jun Yu of Devil Mountain. Moreover, Lu Ming saw some familiar faces from the East Continent. They were Blood Sword 1, Corpse Warrior, Ao 2, and Feng Xian. Emperor God. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes moved, and he saw the Emperor God. Beside the Emperor God was Dong Fengyu. It seems that all the top heavens favorites from the East Continent are here. Lu Ming pondered and flew forward. He came to the first piece of jade and examined it carefully. Suddenly, an overbearing saber intent spread out, causing Lu Ming's expression to change slightly. There was only a jade platform in front of the jade wall, and a young man was already sitting cross-legged on it. Lu Ming continued to move forward. He realized that the feeling that each piece of jade wall gave off was different. It's really wonderful. There seems to be unique skills with artistic conceptions, but they're so mysterious. If you want to gain something, it depends on your comprehension and luck. Lu Ming strolled around casually. Many people had already found their targets and were sitting cross-legged on the jade stage. Lu Ming, the arrangement of these jade walls is very intriguing. In my opinion, there's a big secret. On his shoulder, Dandan sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming. Big secret?
What secret?
What do you see? Lu Ming's heart stirred. There were many rumors about the Wanxiang Jade Wall in the outside world. However, the most widely accepted rumor was that the Wanxiang corn was connected to a wondrous place with a divine treasure. In ancient times, the Tianxia Academy was able to open it, but later on, that method was lost and the Tianxia Academy had not opened it for many years. It was rumored that that place was extremely wondrous. In ancient times, supreme experts would often enter seclusion to cultivate, leaving behind many relics and cave abodes of experts. This was very tempting, but it was a pity that they couldn't enter the back. I don't know. I can't figure it out in a short time. I need time, she said darkly, and jumped down from Lu Ming's shoulder. She walked around on her own. Lu Ming could not be bothered with him. He searched for the jade wall alone. Before long, Lu Ming came to a jade wall. He suddenly heard a faint dragon's roar, and a true dragon pounced at him. This one. In front of this jade wall, there was only a jade platform. No one had come yet. Lu Ming flew up and sat cross-legged on the jade platform, closing his eyes to comprehend. Roar. A dragon's roar was heard. Lu Ming seemed to see a real dragon walking in the void. The dragon's might was vast and mighty for tens of thousands of miles, causing the void to collapse and the earth to sink. It seems like every move of his contains unparalleled combat power. Is this a true dragon combat technique? No, I don't think so. Lu Ming's mind was racing. He felt that the battle dragon's every move was like a battle technique, but it also seemed like it wasn't. It was hard to grasp and capture. Lu Ming tried to understand it, but he gained nothing in the end. No, why should I learn any combat skills from it? I can compare it with my 9 dragons' heaven stomping steps. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he began to comprehend. As a result, he felt that he had gained a lot. His understanding of the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps had increased rapidly, and he had made great progress. He had already cultivated the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps to the 7th step. At this step, it was even more difficult to cultivate. Every step was extremely difficult. If one did not have the right opportunity, they might not be able to cultivate it successfully in their entire lives. Every bit of improvement was precious. Lu Ming had been sitting cross-legged for 3 days. After feeling that he could not gain anything more, he got up and left in search of the next piece. In the sky, in the huge white jade palace, a few elders were discussing some matters. "Sect Master, will this really work?" one of them asked. "That's the only way. The Saint Mansion hasn't been opened for many years. This time, the great era is coming, and the geniuses are gathering. Everyone has great opportunities. Perhaps this is an opportunity, and someone may be able to open the secret realm of the Saint Mansion." A white-haired old man with a sage-like appearance said. "I hope so." The others sighed. Lu Ming continued to look at a few more jade walls, but none of them were suitable for him. After looking at more than 10 jade walls, Lu Ming finally found a suitable one. Dragon roars were still coming from this piece of jade. Lu Ming sat cross-legged on the jade platform. Just like the previous piece of jade, there was a real dragon rolling in the void. However, the difference this time was that there were 2 true dragons. The 2 true dragons were engaged in a fierce battle. Their roars shook the heavens, and the battle was tragic. This is a true dragon combat technique. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The 2 true dragons fought each other. Their dragon claws grabbed out, and their dragon might lashed out. The dragons soared into the sky, and each of their movements was filled with killing power. It was clearly a powerful true dragon combat technique. This combat technique is comparable to a god-level technique. It's very useful to me. Lu Ming revealed a look of excitement. After he used the bloodline fusion, he transformed into the 9 dragons. Usually, he would only use the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps, and then use the prison-suppressing heavenly art. Other than that, the 9 dragons would rely on brute force to fight and lacked killing techniques. If he had this true dragon combat technique, he would definitely be stronger when he transformed into the 9 dragons. Lu Ming carefully observed the battle between the 2 true dragons. He sat there for 10 days. After watching the battle between the 2 true dragons at all times, Lu Ming's understanding of true dragon combat techniques had already reached a rather high level. "Get lost, this piece of jade is mine." Suddenly, a cold shout was heard, causing many people to turn their heads to look. Bloodsword 1 and Huang Kuei. Lu Ming's heart stirred. In front of a jade wall, Xue Jianyi sat cross-legged on a jade platform. Huang Kuei coldly looked at him. He was the one who had told Xue Jianyi to get lost. "Brother, I came here first." Xue Jianyi frowned. "So, what if you came first? He's just a country bumpkin from the East Continent. What right do you have to study on the Myriad form jade wall? Get out of here." Huang Kuei coldly shouted. Chapter 1057. 1057 looking down on him. Huang Kuei shouted coldly. His eyes were cold and filled with disdain. He was like a young master from a big city looking at a country bumpkin from the countryside. Bloodsword 1's face turned ugly. He had his own pride. Before the Battle of Providence, he was ranked second on the list of top 1,000 talents, second only to the Emperor and the deity. In the East Continent, who dared to talk to him like this? In this place, Huang Kuei had actually told him to get lost, saying that he didn't have the qualifications to comprehend here. The arrogant Xue Jianyi's eyes were filled with flames of anger. "What's with that look? Country bumpkin. Are you looking for death?" Huang Kuei berated. "Let's see if you have the ability to get this piece of jade." Bloodsword 1 said coldly.
"What do you mean by this?"
"Do you want to challenge me?" Huang Kuei said. Not bad. He couldn't bear to be looked down on by someone as proud as him in the Tao of the blood sword. He wanted everyone to know his strength. Ha, since you're asking for it, I'll fulfill your wish. Let's go out and fight. Huang Kuei laughed as he shot into the sky, flying out of the region of the Myriad jade wall and into the sky. Xue Jianyi's figure flickered, and he also rushed into the sky. He arrived in front of Huang Kuei, and the two of them stood in the air. Interesting. That guy seems to be from the East Continent. There aren't any experts in the Forsaken Land. This brat is just asking to be humiliated by challenging Huang Kuei. Let's go and take a look. Many people smiled and rose into the sky, watching from a distance. Many people raised their heads to watch from under the Wanxiang Jade Wall. The East Baron has always been the weakest of the 5 regions. There are almost no masters. The so-called proud sons of heaven in the East Baron are all snobbish. They think they are invincible because they are the best in the East Baron, but they don't know that there is always someone better. That's right. A while ago, there was a flood dragon from the East Continent. It was also very arrogant, but it was completely defeated by Song Fei of the Heavenly Martial Sword School. He was almost captured as a mount. Haha, really? Disdainful comments were heard from all around. AO2, Feng Xian, and even the Divine Emperor and Dongfeng Yu frowned. At this moment, Huang Kuei and Xue Jianyi's bodies were covered in a blood-red light. Both of them had cultivated blood concept. Blood concept? He's really showing off his skills before an expert. Huang Kuei sneered. Blood sword unsheath.
Buzz.
Blood sword. Blood sword, one shouted coldly. A blood-red sword flew out from his glabella and grew to more than 10 meters long. As the sword grew, it split into 2, then 4, and finally into 16 huge blood-red swords flying around blood sword. Kill.
Die.
Xue Jian shouted as he formed a finger with his hand. With a wave of his finger, the 16 combat swords turned into 16 blood-red sword lights and shot toward Huang Kuei. As the 16 combat swords danced in the air, they exploded with endless sword qi. The 16 blood-red swords were wrapped in boundless sword qi as they flew toward Huang Kuei. Blood Sword One's battle power was more than 10 times stronger than it had been in the Battle of Providence. His cultivation had already reached the great circle of the spirit embryo realm, and his will of blood and sword had combined into one. As the sword qi swept past, terrifying scars were left in the space. Blood Flame Emperor Claw.
Die.
Huang Kuei didn't dare to be careless. Blood-red light filled the air as he struck out with his claws. In an instant, he had struck out hundreds of times. Huang Kuei clawed out several hundred times in a row, sending endless blood-colored claw projections toward Xue Jianyi. Each claw ray was terrifyingly sharp and emanated a scorching aura. They had the terrifying power of burning and corrosion. Huang Kuei's cultivation was also at the great circle of the spirit embryo realm.
Bang. Bang.
Bang. The blood-red claw radiance and the sword qi that filled the sky collided with each other, causing the air to shake continuously. The blood-red light soared into the sky, and the sword qi surged. The blood-colored claw radiance and the blood-colored sword qi were neutralizing each other. For a moment, they were evenly matched. Huang Kuei's expression was unsightly and extremely dark. He couldn't even take down a country bumpkin from the East Continent, which made him feel very embarrassed.
Kill.
The bloodthirsty swirled. Huang Kuei roared as he unleashed his bloodthirst technique, causing a blood-red barrier to envelop Xue Jianyi. Blood Sword One's expression changed when he was enveloped by the bloodthirsty technique. He felt the blood in his body boiling as if a powerful force was trying to pull his blood. Swish. Xue Jianyi quickly retreated, trying to escape the range of the bloodthirsty technique, but Huang Kuei was holding him back so tightly that he couldn't escape from Huang Kuei's attacks. Helplessly, Blood Sword One could only use bloodline fusion to form a blood-red sword. However, Huang Kuei also used bloodline fusion to form a blood-red claw. The blood claw and the blood sword collided, and the blood sword flew back at an extreme speed. Under the influence of the bloodthirsty technique, blood sword was at a disadvantage. He was no match for the blood claw.
Bang, bang, bang.
After a series of clashes, Huang Kuei gradually gained the upper hand and suppressed blood sword 1. After a few dozen moves, the blood-red sword collapsed. Blood sword 1 spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale. Xue Jian, he had lost. He was no match for Huang Kuei. With a flash of light, the blood claw transformed back into Huang Kuei. He looked at blood sword E in disdain and sneered, "I've told you, a country bumpkin like you is not qualified to cultivate on the Wanxiang Jade Wall." Xue Jianyi's expression was ugly, but he didn't say anything. He had lost. What could a loser say? "I heard that you used to rank second on the list of top 1,000 talents in the East Baron. It seems that the East Baron is really not good enough. If the second is so weak, then the first will not be any better. I heard that the first is called the Emperor God. I think he must be here today. Ask him to come out. I'll take care of him today. Then you people of the East Baron will pack up and go back to the East Baron." Huang Kuei was extremely arrogant. Today, he was going to trample on the people of the East Continent and make himself more famous. "You're looking for me?" A cold voice rang out, and a figure stepped out. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. That was the Emperor God. "You are the Emperor God?" Huang Kuei looked at the Emperor God. "Not bad." The Emperor God nodded. His eyes were calm, and his voice was cold. "You've come at the right time. Make your move. I'll take care of you too." Huang Kuei sneered. Buzz. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrible sword power rose from the Emperor God. The sword chi was as high as the sky and emitted supreme pressure. Facing this pressure, Huang Kuei's expression changed drastically as cold sweat poured down his back. "Spiritual God, you're in the spiritual God realm." Huang Kuei shouted in shock. Buzz. The sword hummed as the sword chi slashed down toward Huang Kuei.
No.
Huang Kuei retreated in shock and used his bloodline fusion to block with all his strength. However, it was all for naught. The sword chi slashed past, and the blood claw exploded. Huang Kuei's body smashed into the ground like a cannonball, creating a huge crater. He lay in the crater and coughed out blood continuously. The crowd was silent for a moment, then burst into an uproar. "This person is so strong. He defeated Huang Kuei in one move. He must be a spiritual god realm expert. I can't believe there's such a genius in the East Baron. His name is Di Shen." Before the Battle of Providence, he ranked first on the list of top 1,000 talents in the East Baron. Later, he was defeated by a man named Lu Ming in the Battle of Providence and is now second.
What?
Is there anyone stronger than him in the East Baron?
E.
The sound of discussion spread out, somewhat in disbelief. Chapter 1058. 1058 The battle between the spiritual god prodigies. The Emperor God didn't even look at Huang Kuei. He turned around and headed for the Myriad Jade Wall. "You want to leave after beating up my cold-blood Hall people?" A cold voice was heard. A young man in a blood-red robe appeared in the air and blocked Di Shen's way. "It's Blood Luo Zi," someone exclaimed. Xue Luo Zi is about to attack. Even more people's eyes lit up. Some time ago, they heard that Xue Luo Zi had entered the spiritual god realm, and so had the supreme god realm. The two spiritual god realm heavens pride experts were about to fight, which made many people's eyes light up. There was no reason for this. The Emperor God was definitely a second-class heavens favorite since he could break through to the spiritual god realm at this age. It was rare for two second-class heavens favorites to fight. "You want to make a move? Then let's do it. I also want to see what's so special about the Central Continent's heavens pride experts." The Emperor God said calmly, but his tone was full of confidence. Now that he had made a major breakthrough in his space mentality, he was confident that he would not be weaker than anyone. Even if he were to face Lu Ming again, he was 100% confident that he could defeat Lu Ming. Then I'll fulfill your wish. Shui Luo Zi's eyes were cold, and his body was filled with a shocking blood light.
Buzz, buzz, whoosh.
At this moment, many figures appeared in the sky, all of them dragons and phoenixes among men. Jing Kongling, Goddess Tan Xiang, Junyu, In Bupo, Kong Xian. Some people recognized them. They were all second-grade heavens favorites, and there were more than 10 of them. This made people's hearts tremble. Other than the Battle of Providence, this was the largest gathering of second-class geniuses. Obviously, the battle between Shui Luo Zi and the Emperor God had attracted them.
Boom.
Boom. Shui Luo Zi and the Emperor God released a terrifying aura at the same time. A saber radiance shot up from Shui Luo Zi's body, while a sword radiance shot up from the Emperor God's body. The saber ray and the sword ray clashed with each other, and their power was extremely terrifying.
Buzz.
The sword ray and the saber ray met in the air, causing a deafening boom. At this moment, Shui Luo Zi and the Emperor God moved at the same time. Blood Sky Blade. Tiangang Emperor Sword. As soon as they made their move, the two of them used low-grade divine level martial techniques. At their level, there was no need for any probing. The moment they made their move, they would use their killing move. They had to carry out an incomparably terrifying killing move.
Boom.
The saber and the sword collided, and the saber radiance and sword chi overflowed, cutting the space into two holospheres. One side was a world of blades, and the other was a world of swords. The two of them retreated at the same time, and then clashed again.
Boom, boom, boom.
In just a few breaths, the two of them had already exchanged dozens of moves. The sky was constantly torn apart with spatial cracks. The deep spatial cracks seemed to be able to suck people's minds in. It was extremely terrifying. Many people kept retreating, not daring to stand too close. It was because their combat strength was too strong, far exceeding that of an ordinary first-level spiritual god realm. Even the chi that leaked out could kill an ordinary first-level spiritual god realm expert. One could imagine how terrifying it was. Only a dozen or so people could stand at the front and watch the battle. They were all heaven's favorites on the same level as Blood Luo. Emperor God's combat strength has made a major breakthrough. It's even more unfathomable. Lu Ming did not fly high into the sky. He remained seated on the jade platform in front of the jade wall, looking up. He felt that the Emperor God had not used his full strength at all. The bloodthirsty world. Shui Luo Zi used the bloodthirsty world, but it was useless. The Emperor God's sword split it. Shui Luo Zi's face turned serious. He had lost his confidence since the beginning of the battle. How can he be so strong? The Emperor God is only ranked second in the East Continent. How could there be such a master in the East Continent? Shui Luo Zi's mind raced. In the end, he used bloodline fusion and turned into a blood-red bat. After performing the bloodline fusion, Blood Luo Zi let out a cry and released a terrifying soundwave attack. At the same time, he flapped his wings and charged at the Emperor God like a blood-red lightning. However, the Emperor God stood there motionlessly. You actually didn't dodge, go to hell. Shui Luo Zi's eyes were filled with killing intent. He rushed toward the Emperor God, but when he reached the Emperor God, he felt that something was wrong. It was just a shadow, not a real body. At this moment, the surrounding people saw the Emperor God suddenly appear behind Shui Luo Zi and slash out with his sword. This is the space mentality. Many people's pupils contracted sharply, revealing a look of disbelief. Not good. Shui Luo Zi sensed the danger and dodged it with a flap of his wings.
Buzz, buzz, buzz.
At this moment, the Emperor God stepped in the air, his body flashing in the air. He was extremely fast and rushed toward Shui Luo Zi. Instant step. However, compared to the Battle of Providence, The Emperor God's instant step was much stronger and extremely fast. In a flash, he could cover several miles, which was unpredictable. The space mentality. It really is the space mentality. This time, even more people could see it, and some people exclaimed, "My God, it really is the space mentality. How is it possible? I can't believe someone in the East Continent has comprehended the will of space. Unbelievable. Unbelievable." Yang Patian, one of the top 5 young warriors, has comprehended the space mentality. I didn't expect that someone in the East Continent had also comprehended the space mentality. Cries of disbelief came from the surroundings. Time and space were kings, and the concept of space was too strong. It was not just empty talk. Even Jing Conling and the other second-grade Heaven's favorites had a serious look in their eyes. In their hearts, they had already regarded the Emperor God as an extremely terrifying opponent. Space mentality, it's actually the space mentality. Then I'll break your space mentality. Shui Luozi roared, and the blood-winged bat opened its mouth and whistled. A terrifying sound wave burst out. Wherever the sound wave passed, the space would ripple like water and finally split open, forming deep spatial cracks. The Emperor God frowned, and his aura grew stronger as he slashed out. This sword contained 3 concepts. Sword concept, golden flame concept, and space concept. This sword moved the space and formed a huge space crack. The sword light was unstoppable as it slashed towards Shui Luozi. Shui Luozi shouted. Blood light filled the air. The blood-winged sky bat's wings were like blades as it struck out with its strongest attack. Boom. The heavens and earth trembled violently as boundless light swept through the sky. A pillar of light shot up into the sky, scattering the clouds in the sky. It was as if a hole had been punched in the sky. Bang! A figure retreated quickly. It was the blood-winged sky bat. As the blood-winged sky bat retreated, it transformed back into its human form. However, there was a trace of blood at the corner of its mouth. Blood Luozi was injured. Do you still want to fight? The Emperor God's long hair fluttered in the wind. He stared at Blood Luozi with lightning-like eyes, as if he was invincible. Let's stop here today. We'll fight another day. Shui Luozi's expression was ugly. He snorted and then flashed away. Blood Luozi left just like that. Everyone knew that Blood Luozi had been defeated by the Emperor God. After everyone was stunned for a moment, they burst into an uproar. Chapter 1059. 1059 Tianshu Cave, Marrow Cleansing Pool. The proud Emperor God from the East Continent had defeated Shui Luozi, which was shocking. This Emperor God is so powerful. He didn't even activate his bloodline. I didn't expect there to be such a powerful figure in the East Baron. I've heard that the Emperor God is a direct descendant of a martial emperor in the East Continent. He is very talented and is ranked 2nd in the East Continent.
What?
Emperor Gods could only be ranked 2nd in the East Continent? I thought he was the number 1 Heaven's favorite in the East Baron. Then who's first? The one in first place is called Lu Ming. It's amazing. Di Shun is so powerful, but Lu Ming can suppress him. What kind of genius is he? It seems that this generation is indeed a great era. Even the East Continent has risen and given birth to geniuses like Lu Ming and the Emperor God. Many people sighed and marveled at the power of the Emperor God. They were also curious about how handsome Lu Ming was, who could suppress the Emperor God. This Blood Luo is really unlucky. He has lost a few rounds in the past year. A year ago, he was defeated by a sovereign called Lu Shaoqing. Now, he's defeated by an Emperor God. This is how geniuses fight for hegemony. The weak will sooner or later become the stepping stones of the stronger. Some people who had a grudge with Cold Blood Hall deliberately dug out the secrets of Cold Blood Hall. It seems like I'll have another strong opponent in the future. Demon Mountain Junhua said, his eyes filled with a strong fighting spirit. This person is indeed terrifying. Ian Bupo nodded. His combat strength was almost the same as Shui Luozi's, so he was probably no match for an emperor god. Tianxia Academy has released news that Tianshu Cave is open. Anyone who passes can enter the marrow cleansing pool once. Suddenly, a piece of news came and caused an uproar.
What?
The Tianshu Cave is open, and those who have passed can enter the marrow cleansing pool. Is this for real? It's true. It's absolutely true. This news was passed down by the headmaster of Tianxia Academy. Heavens, it's great that I can enter the marrow cleansing pool. I want to try it too. You? Stop dreaming. Everyone in the world knows that the Tianshu Cave of Tianxia Academy is frighteningly difficult. Only a few people have ever passed it. You won't know if you don't try. I heard that Tianshu Cave doesn't look at strength. Everyone who enters Tianshu Cave will face a different situation. There was even a martial king who managed to break through Tianshu Cave. That's true. Let's go and try. After a heated discussion, countless people flew in one direction. Tianshu Cave? Marrow cleansing pool? I didn't expect that the Tianxia Academy would actually open the marrow cleansing pool. I can fight for it. Lu Ming's gaze flickered. Tianxia Academy's marrow cleansing pool was famous all over the world. Entering the marrow cleansing pool could allow a warrior's body to transform, complete sublimation, and finally reach perfection. One of the most important conditions to break through to the martial emperor realm was that one's physical body had to reach the complete 9th grade. However, after the body reached level 9, it was actually very difficult to reach perfection. There would be a threshold that was not easy to cross. However, in the marrow cleansing pool, the body could be perfected, and the first foundation to break through to the martial emperor realm could be laid. This moved many of the heaven's favorites who wanted to become emperors. For example, Jing Kongling, Jun Yu, etc. Even those heaven's favorites who knew that they had no chance of breaking through to the martial emperor realm were tempted. Who wouldn't want to have a stronger body? Lu Ming was also tempted because his physical body had reached the 9th grade. If he could cultivate his physical body to perfection in the marrow cleansing pool, he would have fewer things to do in the future. Lu Ming also got off the jade platform and followed the crowd in a certain direction. Soon, they arrived at a huge mountain peak. This mountain was extremely huge, and the bottom of the mountain was at least 100 miles wide. At the foot of the mountain, there was a huge cave. It was the Tiangang Cave. From this side of the Tianshu Cave to the other side of the mountain, it was 100 miles long. As long as one passed through the Tianshu Cave from this side and came out from the other side, they would be considered to have passed the Tianshu Cave and would be able to obtain a quota to enter the marrow cleansing pool. However, the Tianshu Cave was extremely mysterious. It was said that everyone who entered would encounter different things. Since ancient times, there were very few people who could pass through it, and it was extremely wonderful. I'll try. A young man rushed into the Tianshu Cave, but not long after, a light flashed outside the Tianshu Cave, and he was transported out. He returned to the crowd dejectedly. What's going on? What did you encounter? Someone asked. As soon as I entered, I met a powerful, fierce beast. It severely injured me with one slap, so I was teleported out. Fortunately, the injury was fake, and I recovered as soon as I came out. The man replied, I'll try. Another person rushed in, but after a while, he was also teleported out. Someone asked him, and he said that he had encountered a sword and cut him down. Everyone looked at each other. Sure enough, everyone encountered a different situation when they entered. It was impossible to know what flaws, weaknesses, and rules there were. Following that, the paragons entered the Tianshu Cave one after another, but all of them failed. Not a single one succeeded. Jun Yu and the other heaven's favorites didn't move. Instead, they stood in the air and watched quietly. Lu Ming did not move. He was not in a hurry and let the others go first. In the end, Lu Ming closed his eyes and tried to comprehend the essence realm of heaven and earth. For 10 consecutive days, countless people went in, but not a single one succeeded. They all failed, and all of them were dejected. Chu Kuang, Zhang Wenjin, and the other third-grade Heaven's favorites also entered, but they all failed. Yin Bupo has gone in. Someone called out, and many people were shocked. Finally, a second-grade Heaven's favorite made his move. Yin Bupo went in for a very long time. Half an hour had passed, and he still hadn't come out. Don't tell me that Yin Bupo can make it through? Someone guessed. It was very possible that he had not come out after half an hour. It was possible for him to make it through. Second-grade geniuses were indeed different. Some people simply went to the other side of the mountain peak to wait, to see if Yin Bupo would come out from the Tianshu Cave's exit. However, at this moment, a light flashed at the entrance of Tianshu Cave, and Yin Bupo was also transported out. AI. Yin Bupo sighed. He had also failed. This Tiangang Cave is too difficult. Even a second-grade Heaven's favorite can't pass it. It's indeed too difficult. I wonder if the top 5 young warriors can make it through. Many people sighed. Buzz. A blood-red light rushed in. It's Blood Luo Zi. Someone recognized it. Apparently, Shui Luo Zi had recovered from his injuries. He also appeared here, planning to explore the Tiangang Cave. Unfortunately, just like Yin Bupo, he was also teleported out after half an hour and failed. Next, Jun Yu, Goddess Tan Xiang, and the others tried, but they all failed. Wu Qinkong has gone in. Someone muttered. A white-robed young man with a long sword on his back stepped into Tiangang Cave. Wu Qinkong was the #1 genius of the Tianwu sword faction. This was an extremely terrifying and powerful figure who was extremely famous in the Central Continent. There were strong and weak second-grade Heaven's favorites, and Wu Qinkong was undoubtedly the most powerful one. He was known as one of the strongest people under the 5 young giants. Everyone watched quietly, wondering if Wu Qinkong could make it through the Tiangang Cave. Chapter 1060. 1060 Chapter 1060 Yang Patian. It had been almost an hour since Wu Qinkong entered, but he still failed and was teleported out. Even Wu Qinkong failed. Can we even pass the Tiangang Cave? That's right, this is too difficult. It can't be that he can't even pass the 5 giants, right? That's not necessarily true. Tianshu Cave doesn't test pure combat power. Many people around sighed. Even Wu Qinkong could not pass it. It was too difficult. Wu Qinkong carried his sword and flew to the side. He sat in the air, looking calm. I'll try. The pure spatial spirit's body was surrounded by clouds and mist as he stepped into the sky and entered the rising sky cave. However, no one thought highly of the pure spirit. Even Wu Qinkong failed, so no one thought that the pure spirit could pass. However, after nearly an hour, a cry of surprise came from the exit of Tianshu Cave. It's a success. The pure spatial spirit has succeeded. The exclamations rose and fell. What? The pure spatial spirit had succeeded? Let's go take a look. Immediately, the figures flew to the other side of the mountain. Even Goddess Tan Xiang, Jun Yu, Wu Qinkong, and the others could not help but fly to the other side of the mountain. When he flew over, he saw Qing Junling standing in the air. The pure void spirit had actually passed through the Tiangang Cave.
Buzz. Buzz.
At this time, 2 beams of light flew down from the white jade palace in the sky and turned into 2 white-robed elders. They were the 2 elders of the Tianxia Academy. Haha, Miss Jing Kongling, congratulations on obtaining a spot to enter the marrow cleansing pool. Here's a token for you. The marrow cleansing pool will be opened in half a month. You can use this token to enter the pool. An elder laughed as he took out a token and passed it to Jing Kongling. Many thanks, senior. Jing Kongling thanked him and took the token. Countless people looked at Jing Kongling with envy. This was the token that allowed one to enter the marrow cleansing pool. Yin Bupo, Master Shui Luo, Jun Yu, and the others were even more envious. They were all people who had the ambition to become emperors, and the marrow cleansing pool could save them a lot of time. Wu Qinggong's eyes were filled with fire as he looked at Jing Kongling with possessiveness. Everyone knew that Wu Qingkong was a pursuer of Jing Kongling, but Jing Kongling did not seem to be interested in him. Sister Kongling, congratulations. Goddess Tan Xiang smiled and walked towards Jing Kongling to congratulate him. Fairy Tan Xiang didn't feel much about the marrow cleansing pool. She cultivated the Tao of inscriptions, so the strength of her physical body didn't matter much. The pure spatial spirit was also quite happy. At first, she didn't expect to pass. Then, everyone returned to the entrance of the Tianshu cave. A tall and straight figure stepped in. It's him, Di Shen. Many people's eyes moved. After defeating Blood Luo Zi last time, Di Shen's fame had increased, and he had attracted a lot of attention. Many people were watching and guessing whether the Emperor God could pass through the Tiangang cave. It shouldn't be possible to pass. The pure spatial spirit is a special case. I really don't know what conditions are required to pass the Tianshu cave. It's too difficult to pass through the Tianshu cave. According to this ratio, there are less than 10 people in the world who can pass through it. Indeed, the Tianxia Academy had long known that not many could pass, so they opened the marrow cleansing pool. Otherwise, if anyone could pass, the Tianxia Academy would have suffered a great loss. Some people were chatting and waiting. Suddenly dash.
He passed.
The Emperor God passed. Another cry of surprise rang out.
What?
You passed? How is that possible? A group of people was shocked and hurriedly flew over to take a look. As expected, they saw the Emperor God's figure at the exit of Tianshu Cave. The Emperor God had really passed through the Tiangang Cave. This Emperor God is amazing. Some people sighed and began to re-examine the Emperor Gods. The Emperor God had first defeated Blood Luo Zi, and now he had passed through Tianshu Cave. It was amazing. Naturally, many people thought of the name Lu Ming. Anyone who knew about the East Baron's proud sons of heaven knew that the number one in the East Baron was Lu Ming, not the Emperor God. Even Wu Qinggong's eyes shot out two beams of sword light as he stared at Di Shen. No wonder he's the Emperor God, the strongest junior of D.E. In the crowd, Lu Ming's lips curled up slightly. The Emperor God was indeed very powerful and had amazing talent. He had comprehended 3 kinds of intent realms and even had a terrifying intent realm like space intent realm. In the War of Providence, Lu Ming had relied on the combination of the Tao of inscription to barely suppress the Emperor Gods. In Lu Ming's heart, he had never underestimated the Emperor Gods. Now, more than a year and a half had passed, and the Emperor God had become even more terrifying. The 2 old men flew down from the white jade palace above and looked at the Emperor God in surprise. Another person passed, and it was indeed beyond the expectations of the Tianxia Academy. Young Master Di Shen, please take this token. You can enter the marrow cleansing pool to cultivate with it. An old man gave the Emperor God a token. The Emperor God took it and thanked the old man. Yang Patian has come. Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the front. What? Yang Patian, one of the 5 magnates, has arrived. The crowd exclaimed in shock. Then, they all charged forward. In the air, a young man stepped through the air. This young man had his hands behind his back and his hair was loose. He was tall and burly, and his eyes were bright and full of wildness. Step by step, he walked very slowly, but he exuded a supreme majesty. Everyone felt a huge pressure on their hearts. Wu Qingkong, Junyu, and the other heaven's favorites looked serious. The Emperor God's eyes were filled with fighting intent. Yang Patian, like the Emperor God, had also cultivated space intent. So this is Yang Patian, one of the top 5 young warriors. Lu Ming's eyes were bright as he stared at Yang Patian. Yang Patian gave him a very strong pressure. He had a feeling that this person was very strong and very dangerous. Yang Patian stepped on the air and walked into the Tianshu cave without looking at the crowd. He then disappeared. Let's go to the exit. Yang Patian should be able to pass through the Tiangang Cave. Many people flew towards the exit of Tianshu Cave. Even the two elders from Tianxia Academy didn't leave. Instead, they waited at the exit. Half an hour later, a tall figure stepped out of the Tianshu Cave's exit. Yang Patian. He had indeed passed through the Tiangang Cave. Amazing, amazing. The 5 magnates should all be able to pass through the Tiangang Cave. That's right. The 5 magnates are too terrifying. In the past, they were all heaven's favorites that only appeared once in 1,000 years. But now, there are 5 of them in this generation. Many people sighed. The 5 magnates were the pinnacle of all heaven's favorites in the central continent. The ultimate goal of all the young people was really powerful. It was a sure thing that they would become supreme martial artists. In the future, it was also very likely that they would break through to the emperor realm. It could be said that they were all young emperors. I should also try. Lu Ming smiled. He came to the entrance and stepped in. Lu Ming did not attract much attention when he stepped into the Tianshu Cave. Even if some people saw Lu Ming entering, they only regarded him as a small fry and did not take him seriously at all. Chapter 1061. 1061 Lu Ming passed. After Yang Patian received the token from the World Book Academy's elder, many people returned to the entrance of Tianshu Cave. After Yang Patian put away the token, he directly stepped into the air and left, as if there was nothing worth his attention here. Someone else went in.
Who was it?
I wanted to go in and give it a try.
I don't know.
I don't know him.
He's just a small fry.
I think he'll be out in less than 2 minutes. What an exciting day. 3 people passed the Tiangang Cave in a row. Yeah, but the strongest group of people have already entered. There shouldn't be anyone else who will pass. Many people were chatting casually, planning to wait for Lu Ming to fail and be teleported out. However, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes had passed, and Lu Ming still had not come out. Nest, that guy can actually hold on for so long. Strange. Let's wait a little longer. Maybe he'll come out in a while. However, Lu Ming still did not come out after waiting for a long time. They could not help but look at each other. As soon as Lu Ming stepped into the Tianshu Cave, the surrounding environment changed. He came to a platform. A formation. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. This Tiangang Cave had an extremely powerful formation. No, my cultivation. At this moment, Lu Ming was shocked to find that his cultivation level was dropping rapidly. From the spiritual god realm to the spirit embryo realm, then to the spirit ocean, then to the king realm, and then to the grandmaster realm. In the end, Lu Ming's cultivation level dropped to 9th grade warrior realm before it stopped. His domain, 2nd and 3rd bloodlines were all sealed. Only the bloodline of the 9 dragons had not been sealed. The combat strength he could exert was actually similar to when he was in 9th grade warrior realm. There was a long spear stuck in the ground beside Lu Ming. In front of the platform, a figure condensed. It was a middle-aged man, with a long sword on his back. Judging from his aura, he was at the One Dan Master Realm. That long spear is a weapon for you. If you can defeat me, you'll be able to move on to the next stage, the middle-aged man said coldly. Then he unsheathed his sword. A sharp sword light cut through the air, making an ear-piercing whistling sound, and slashed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming pulled out the long spear beside him. He shook the long spear and cast the fire gun technique. Whoosh! The long spear turned into a rainbow light and arrived first. It pierced through the middle of the middle-aged man's eyebrows and killed him. The middle-aged man's figure collapsed and disappeared without a trace. Is this a test of my combat strength when I'm in 9th grade warrior realm? Lu Ming guessed in his heart. In the next moment, 3 figures appeared in front of the platform. They were 3 middle-aged men with the same cultivation and were all at the 1st grade master realm. The 3 of them unsheathed their swords at the same time and charged at Lu Ming. He shook his long spear and fought with the 3 middle-aged men. In a short while, he had killed the 3 men. When Lu Ming was in the 9th grade warrior realm, it was not difficult for him to kill a 1st grade master realm martial artist. After killing the 3 of them, the surroundings changed again. Lu Ming appeared on another platform. My cultivation has reached the 9th grade master realm. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He realized that his cultivation had reached the 9th grade master realm. Another middle-aged man appeared in front of him. He looked the same as the previous man, but his cultivation was completely different. The aura that this middle-aged man was emitting was clearly at the 1st grade Great Martial Master realm. As expected, it was testing Lu Ming's combatability at each stage. There was nothing much to say. The 2 of them started fighting, and Lu Ming killed the middle-aged man in 1 move. In the next moment, 3 1st-grade Great Martial Master middle-aged men appeared. They were also killed by Lu Ming. After that, Lu Ming's cultivation rose to the 9th grade Grandmaster realm, while the opponent he faced was a 1st-grade martial arts Grandmaster.
The result was the same.
Lu Ming overcame all difficulties and passed this round. In the next round, Lu Ming's cultivation was at the half-step king realm, and his opponent was at the 1st level of the martial king realm. At this time, Lu Ming discovered that he could use the power of his 2nd bloodline, but it could only exert the power of a half-step king. Lu Ming spent some time in this battle. This was because the further one advanced, the more difficult it was to cross realms and fight. However, Lu Ming still managed to clear it. Then, Lu Ming's cultivation level rose to peak tier king while his opponent became at the 1st level of the spiritual ocean tier. This battle took even more time, but he still made it through. After that, it was the great circle of the spirit sea realm and the 1st level of the spirit embryo realm. Also passed. However, when Lu Ming's cultivation level rose to the great circle of the spirit embryo realm and he fought against the 1st level of the spiritual god realm, he finally met with a real challenge. In the beginning, when he was facing a 1st-level spiritual god, Lu Ming could still be more relaxed and kill him in the end. However, he encountered a huge challenge when he fought against the 3 1st-level spiritual god realm experts. Lu Ming did his best to fight against 3 1st-level spiritual god realm experts. This battle lasted for half an hour. Lu Ming finally managed to kill the 3 1st-level spiritual god realm experts with great difficulty. He was also severely injured. This is too difficult. If it's this difficult, how did the pure spatial spirit pass? How did the Emperor God pass? Lu Ming was speechless. It was hard to say for Yang Patian, but Lu Ming was certain that it was impossible for the pure space spirit and the Emperor God to kill 3 1st-level spiritual god realm experts when they were at the perfected spirit embryo realm. Everyone faces a different situation in Tianshu Cave. Could it be that I'm unlucky and have encountered a difficult one? Lu Ming was somewhat speechless. At this moment, the surrounding environment changed. Lu Ming discovered that there was a cave in front of him and bright light was shining from the cave. Lu Ming had passed through the Tianshu Cave's exit. At this moment, Lu Ming realized that his cultivation had recovered to the 1st level of the spiritual god realm and the injuries he had suffered earlier had also healed. Without any hesitation, he took a step forward. As soon as he went out, he saw some people outside the cave staring at him with wide eyes, their faces full of disbelief. There were undoubtedly more people guarding the entrance of the Tianshu Cave, but at this time, some people were already impatient. Who is it? Why didn't he come out after so long? I've been waiting for an hour. Yeah, who went in just now? Could he be another 2nd grade Heaven's favorite?
I didn't see it just now.
No, I've never seen that person before. I don't know him. You don't know him? He's just a small fish, and he was able to go in for so long. Could it be that he'll pass? Impossible. It's impossible to pass. At this moment, a cry of disbelief came from the direction of the Tianshu Cave's exit.
Passed.
Someone else passed.
Who is he?
Why haven't I seen him before? The voice was clearly transmitted over, causing the people at the entrance of Tianshu Cave to be dumbfounded and look at each other. He actually passed?
Who is it?
Let's go and take a look. Almost everyone flew toward the Tianshu Cave's exit. They were all surprised to see Lu Ming. This was because no one really knew who he was. They had never seen him before. Lu Ming looked around with a bitter smile, a simple and honest smile on his tanned face. Are they from the East Continent? Someone asked the Divine Emperor. No, I've never seen him before. The Emperor God shook his head. He is also not from our northern plains. The ones who spoke were a few burly young men who were carrying maces and axes on their backs and seemed to be mad. These were the heaven's favorites from northern plains. Chapter 1062. 1062. It would be a waste to give it to you. He is not from Eastern Barren Territory or Northern Plains. He is definitely not from Western Desert. Could he be a heaven's favorite from Southern Nether? Impossible. No one from the Southern Underworld has come here. The crowd around them continued to discuss and guess Lu Ming's identity. However, they could not guess that no one knew Lu Ming. The Tianshu Cave is very mysterious. It doesn't necessarily mean that only the strongest heaven's favorites can pass through it. Some ordinary geniuses can pass through it if they are lucky.
Someone said.
As soon as he said this, the crowd's eyes were filled with different expressions. Some people looked at Lu Ming with a burning gaze.
Buzz. Buzz.
2 white-haired elders descended from the sky. They were the 2 elders of the Tianxia Academy. The 2 elders were also very surprised to see Lu Ming. They had thought that after Yang Patian, no one would be able to clear the Tiangang cave. They did not expect that someone would be able to. Young friend, take this token. In half a month, the marrow cleansing pool will open. You can use this token to enter the pool. An elder took out a token and passed it to Lu Ming. Many thanks, senior. Lu Ming took the token and thanked him with cupped fists. The 2 old men smiled and turned to leave. Many people looked at the token in Lu Ming's hand with burning eyes. Among them, Wu Qinkong, Shui Luozi, and the other second-grade geniuses were the most excited. Excuse me, please. Lu Ming put away the token and smiled. He squeezed out of the crowd and walked toward the Wanxiang Jade Wall. He was no longer interested in who would challenge the Tianshu Cave next. In the crowd, Blood Luozi's gaze was fixed on Lu Ming's back. Dandan, how's the research going? When he came to the Wanxiang Jade, he found that Dandan was still walking around and observing seriously. There's already some progress. Little brat, don't disturb this lord. After a while, this lord will definitely give you a big surprise. After saying that, he ignored Lu Ming and continued his research. This guy. Lu Ming smiled and ignored her. He looked for a suitable jade wall and continued to comprehend. The Myriad image jade wall was all-encompassing and could really find anything. Before long, Lu Ming found an extremely mysterious jade wall. In front of this jade wall, Lu Ming could comprehend the profound principles of the concept of fire. Lu Ming studied it carefully. With his current level of comprehension, he had gained a lot. In just a few days, Lu Ming's concept of fire had gained a lot. He felt that he could make a breakthrough at any time and reach the lower tier of level 4. Lu Ming was overjoyed and continued to comprehend. After another 3 days, Lu Ming's concept of fire really broke through in one go and reached level 4 lower tier. This trip to the Tianxia Academy was worth it. He had gained a lot. Young hero, my young master would like to see you. At this moment, a young lady walked to Lu Ming's side with a sweet smile. Who is your young master? Lu Ming frowned slightly. Young master will know when you get there. It's on that mountain peak not far away. The woman pointed to a mountain peak in the east. All right, I'll go with you. Lu Ming pondered for a moment and followed the young woman, flying toward the mountain peak. The mountain was only 100 miles away from the Wanxiang Jade Wall. There were 2 figures on the mountain peak. One of them was actually a Blood Luo master, while the other was an old man in a blood-red robe. He must be a master from Cold Blood Hall. Seeing Lu Ming, Shui Luo Zi smiled. Haha, how should I address you, brother? I'm from the mountains, so even if I tell you, Brother Shui won't know. I wonder why Brother Shui has called me here? Lu Ming smiled faintly. Oh, it's very simple. I want to buy your token to enter the marrow cleansing pool. How many raw stones do you need? You can name a price. Blood Luo Zi said. As expected, it's because of this matter. Lu Ming sneered in his heart. The moment he saw Blood Luo Zi, he guessed that he was looking for him because of the token in his hand. Brother Shui, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. I don't have any plans to sell the token. Lu Ming smiled. Blood Luo Zi's face darkened at Lu Ming's refusal. You'd better think about it. The quota for the marrow cleansing pool is of little use to you. It'll only be a waste. Only in my hands will you be able to bring out the greatest effect. Zhang Xian said. There was a threatening tone in his voice. He looked at Lu Ming with a hint of disdain. He meant that it was a waste for Lu Ming to have the quota for the marrow cleansing pool. Whether I waste my time or not is my own business. There's no need for Brother Shui to worry. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Lu Ming said coldly and turned to leave. Boom. All of a sudden, a terrifying and powerful aura rose up and a strong pressure pressed down on Lu Ming. It was Shui Luo Zi. At this moment, Shui Luo Zi's eyes were cold as he said, Kid, you have to give it to me even if you don't want to. It's a pure waste of a heavenly treasure to keep it on you. It can only display its greatest effect on me, you know? It'll only be of the greatest use on you. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. He looked at Blood Luo Zi in disdain and said, First, you were defeated by Lu Shaoqing, and then you were defeated by the Divine Emperors. How can a loser like you act so high and mighty? In my opinion, it's a real waste to give you the spot. How audacious! Shui Luo Zi roared with a cold look. Kid, I was going to buy it from you with raw stones, but it seems like I don't have to. Just hand it over or you'll know the consequences. The old man beside Blood Luo Zi also stared at Lu Ming with a cold gaze. That old man was definitely an expert. A terrifying expert. He gave Lu Ming a very dangerous feeling. However, Lu Ming was not afraid because he was in the Tianxia Academy. Idiot. Therefore, Lu Ming looked at Blood Luo Zi in disdain and said, You think this is Cold Blood Hall? This is the Tianxia Academy, and the Emperor is in charge. I'm afraid the Emperor has seen what you've done. Do you still want to rob it? You. Shui Luo Zi gritted his teeth. Indeed, this was the Tianxia Academy. Lu Ming had obtained the quota to enter the marrow cleansing pool through the Tianxu cave. If Lu Ming gave the quota to him, the Tianxia Academy might not care. But if they wanted to snatch it, the Tianxia Academy would not sit by and do nothing. He thought that with his status, Lu Ming, this kid who appeared out of nowhere, would definitely be scared to death. He would give him face and give him the token obediently. He did not expect Lu Ming to not give him any face at all. Kid, you can't hide in Tianxia Academy forever. You'd better leave yourself a way out. The old man coldly spoke. This was a blatant threat. It meant that if Lu Ming left the Tianxia Academy, no one could protect him. Hee. Lu Ming sneered. He was too lazy to say more. He ignored Blood Luo Zi and the elder and turned to leave. This made the old man and Blood Luo Zi so angry that their faces turned green. They were actually ignored by Lu Ming. Lu Ming walked toward the Wanxiang Jade Wall but was stopped by another person on the way. Wu Chunkong, from the Heavenly Martial Sword Sect. He carried a long sword on his back, his posture as straight as a sword, and stood in front of Lu Ming. Chapter 1063. 1063 Chapter 1063 Perfected Physical Body. Your Excellency, what's the matter? Lu Ming asked coldly. Hand over your token and give me the quota for the marrow cleansing pool. Wu Chengkong went straight to the point. Lu Ming sneered. It was indeed because of the quota for the marrow cleansing pool. These people really treated him as a soft persimmon. Jing Conling had the floating mountain sect behind him, and Yang Patian was someone they didn't dare to offend. The Emperor God had displayed great combat strength, and the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was behind him. They didn't even look for him, but instead, they looked for him. There was no doubt that Lu Ming, this person who had suddenly appeared, had become highly sought after. Idiot. Lu Ming did not bother with Wu Chengkong. He took a step forward and, like a stream of light, arrived at the nature jade wall in an instant. He continued to look for the corresponding jade wall to comprehend. Wu Chengkong's eyes were sharp and cold as he looked in the direction where Lu Ming had left. Lu Ming was very displeased. If these guys continued to pester him, Lu Ming did not mind using thunderous means to teach them a lesson. He continued to search for jade pieces. Not long after, Lu Ming found a jade piece with a profound thunder concept and studied it in detail. Time flowed like water. Half a month had passed since Lu Ming passed through the Tianshu cave. At this moment, someone came to inform Lu Ming that the marrow cleansing pool had been opened and he could enter. Lu Ming followed the person and flew over many mountains. They came to a small hill. When he arrived, he realized that Jing Conling, Di Shun, and Yang Patian had already arrived. Seeing Lu Ming, Qing Junling smiled. The Divine Emperor sized Lu Ming up curiously. Yang Patian, on the other hand, had his hands behind his back and did not even look at Lu Ming. All right, open the marrow cleansing pool. There were a few white-haired old men here. The mental energy fire between their eyebrows jumped and runes appeared, entering the hill. Ka. The hill split open, revealing an ancient bluestone road that led to the front. Go, the marrow cleansing pool is just ahead. You only have 3 days. Once the 3 days are up, you must come out. An old man reminded, and everyone nodded. Yang Patian took the lead and walked towards the ancient bluestone road. After that, Di Shun, Jing Conling, and Lu Ming stepped onto the ancient road and moved forward. After stepping on the ancient road, a place full of spiritual qi appeared in front of them. On the ground, there were 9 pools, which were covered with a faint mist, like 9 celestial pools. This was the marrow cleansing pool. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. He did not expect that there would be 9 marrow cleansing pools. However, the area wasn't large. Each bite was only a few meters in radius. The 4 of them each chose one and walked over, stepping into the marrow cleansing pool one after another. As soon as Lu Ming stepped into the marrow cleansing pool, he immediately felt a mysterious power in the surroundings that continuously drilled into his body. It was the pool water. It was the power transformed from the pool water. The water in the marrow cleansing pool had a mysterious power. Of course, it was not just the water. The entire marrow cleansing pool had a field energy that aided the water to permeate every part of Lu Ming's body. At this moment, Lu Ming could feel that his physical body was improving rapidly. Initially, Lu Ming's physical body had already reached the 9th rank. At this moment, he was constantly climbing toward the peak of the 9th rank. It's so comfortable, Lu Ming sighed. Originally, cleansing one's meridians and marrow was an extremely painful thing. However, there was no pain at all here. Instead, he felt comfortable all over. Lu Ming could clearly feel that the impurities and dirt in his body were being cleared by a kind of wonderful energy. It made his body purer and dustless. Time passed by quickly.
3 days passed just like that.
Voila! Lu Ming rushed to the marrow cleansing pool with a burning gaze. So good. Lu Ming felt refreshed, and his body was empty. Right now, his body was simply perfect with perfect lines. His body seemed to be made of stainless divine gold, powerful and pure. Complete grade 9, complete grade. Is this the limit of the physical body? Lu Ming felt it carefully, and his face was filled with joy. He had a feeling that his physical body had reached perfection and had reached a limit. It was impossible for him to improve it any further. If it continued to rise, it would no longer be a mortal body, but a whole new level. Jing Kongling, Di Shun, Yang Patian, and the others also came out of the marrow-cleansing pool with smiles on their faces. Obviously, they had also gained a great harvest. Yang Patian was the first to step out, and then the others came out of the marrow-cleansing pool one after another. Outside, a few old men were still waiting. When they came out, the old men carved inscriptions, and the hill returned to its original state.
Boom, boom, boom.
It was at this moment that 9 pillars of light shot up into the sky in the distance. The heavens and earth shook, and it was extremely shocking. Everyone looked in that direction in shock, because that was where the Myriad elephant jade wall was. What was going on? Could this be the Holy Mansion? The Holy Mansion has opened. A few elders from the Tianxia Academy were excited, and their voices trembled. Holy Mansion. Lu Ming and the rest were shocked. It was said that the 10,000 elephant jade wall had a great secret. It was connected to a divine treasury and a secret realm. It was very mysterious. 30,000 years ago, that divine treasury could still be opened occasionally, and supreme experts would enter to cultivate and comprehend the Tao. It contained great opportunities. However, 30,000 years ago, a terrifying war broke out in the central continent. There was a rebellion in the ancient Saint dynasty. That war directly weakened the power of the ancient Saint dynasty's Xie clan, and the central continent was split up by the various emperors. In that battle, the world's academies were also seriously affected. In the end, even the method to open the divine treasury was lost. From then on, no one had ever opened the divine treasury and the Saint Mansion. Could it be that it had opened again?
Buzz, buzz, buzz.
Without any hesitation, Lu Ming and the rest rose into the air and flew in the direction of the Myriad elephant jade wall. At this moment, Lu Ming saw beams of rainbow light flying out from the huge, white jade palace in the sky. Beams of light flew out from all the peaks of the Tianxia Academy toward the Wanxiang Jade Wall. Very soon, Lu Ming and the group arrived. At this moment, all of the Wanxiang Jade Walls glowed, and inscriptions emerged. They gathered into 9 huge pillars of light that shot into the sky. Outside the 9 pillars of light, there were countless figures standing. Apparently, the heroes who were meditating on the Myriad elephant jade wall had been expelled for some reason.
Buzz.
As soon as Lu Ming arrived, a little turtle leaped onto his shoulder. Dandan, what's going on? Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Dandan. Haha, Lu Ming, how is it? I've deciphered the secret of this place and activated the formation. Dandan sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming smugly. You did it? Lu Ming was a little speechless. In fact, he had already guessed that it might be because of Dandan. He did not expect that it was really Dandan who did it. This place is connected to a secret realm. It's amazing. Dandan sighed.
Boom, boom, boom.
At this moment, more and more people appeared in the air. Some of the elders were exuding terrifying auras. Supreme martial artists. There are so many supreme martial artists. Lu Ming was all too familiar with this aura. It was the aura of a supreme. Some of them were martial arts supreme masters, while others were inscription Dao supreme masters. There were no less than 10 of them. Chapter 1064. 1060 for the Secret Realm of Saint Mansion. The Tianxia Academy did indeed have people who cultivated the way of inscription and martial arts. Their strength was extremely powerful and unfathomable. There were also many whose auras were weaker than Supremes, but that was only in comparison. In fact, they were also extremely powerful and were definitely high-level spiritual gods. The Saint Mansion. The Saint Mansion has opened. The Saint Mansion that hasn't been opened for 30,000 years has actually opened. The headmaster's decision is correct. The voices echoed in the sky.
Buzz.
Suddenly, an old man stepped out and rushed towards one of the light pillars. However, as soon as he rushed in, a look of horror appeared on his face, and he let out a miserable scream. The next moment his body exploded, and his body and soul were destroyed. Many people gasped and shivered. The old man was definitely a high-level spiritual god, but he had died just like that.
What was going on?
How could this be? It said that anyone can enter the holy mansion, so why did Elder Wu die? A voice of disbelief was heard from the Tianxia Academy. 30,000 years ago, no matter if it was male or female, old or young, no matter how strong one's cultivation was, they could enter the Saint Mansion to find opportunities and cultivate there. But just now, why did that old man die? Has the rules of the Saint Mansion changed?
Someone made a guess.
Many people thought it was possible. After all, the Saint Mansion had been closed for 30,000 years. It was possible that the rules had changed. In this way, no one dared to act rashly. No one knew if they would die if they rushed in. After that, the Tianxia Academy sent experts to investigate and see what was going on. The news of the reopening of the Sage Mansion of the World Academy spread like a storm. Dandan, do you know what's going on? Lu Ming brought Dandan to a mountain peak 100 miles away and asked. According to my speculation, those 9 pillars of light are the spatial paths, the passages to the secret realm. However, these passages contain an aging array, which has a requirement for the age of the entrance. However, I haven't studied the specific age restrictions, so I'm not too sure. Dandan explained. There's an age requirement? That's strange. Lu Ming was a little surprised. According to the rumors, there was no age limit in this mystic realm 30,000 years ago. However, there was no point in overthinking. Lu Ming then cultivated while waiting for news. Lu Ming did not want to miss it if he could enter the secret realm. It was said that there were great opportunities in the secret realm. In the past, there were often ultimate powerhouses cultivating in there. If those ultimate powerhouses could leave something behind, it would be a great opportunity. That was because the strongest people in the world were all emperors. As time passed, more and more people came to the Tianxia Academy. Many major forces received the news, and a large number of people rushed over. In fact, some of the overlord forces even sent their supreme martial artists. For example, the forces closest to the Tianxia Academy, such as the Floating Mountain, Cold Blood Hall, Sky Eagle Castle, Tianwu Sword Sect, Demon Mountain, and the Ji family. There were also many people from smaller forces. Even more geniuses had arrived. For a time, the world's academies were filled with strong people. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. At this time, the Tianxia Academy released news that they had already investigated the rules of the entrance to the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. Only creatures under the age of 50 could enter. Those above the age of 50 would die if they entered. Moreover, the Tianxia Academy and the supreme leaders of the various forces had already discussed that anyone from the major forces could enter. However, because there were too many people who came to the Tianxia Academy, many of them were below the age of 50. It was obviously not feasible for so many people to enter. Therefore, the Tianxia Academy planned to conduct a screening. Only those whose combat strength had reached a certain level could enter. It was said that the secret realm of the Saint Mansion was very dangerous. If one didn't have enough combat power, they would die. A day later, a huge array rose in a huge square of the Tianxia Academy. This array was the selection place. Anyone under the age of 50 could come here to participate in the general selection. Only those who passed could enter the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. The square was surrounded by a sea of people. Countless people from all the major forces had gathered. Lu Ming was also among the crowd. There were some people standing in the sky. Many of them were old men, and some of them looked young. Everyone knew that these people were the supreme being experts of the major forces. In this formation, puppets will be formed. You guys can enter and kill them. Every time you kill a puppet, there will be essence, chi covering your body. At first, it will be red, but as more and more essence chi is gathered, the color of your essence chi will change. Then it will be orange, yellow, green, and finally purple. Only when the color of the spiritual essence gathered in your body reaches yellow will you pass the test and enter the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. If you don't reach the yellow color, you'll be eliminated. The test begins now. In the sky, an old man from the Tianxia Academy announced the selection rules. The rules were simple. They had to enter the formation, kill the puppets, and accumulate essence chi. Once the essence chi reached a certain standard, they would pass the test. As soon as the old man finished speaking, many people rushed into the formation. There were many young men, but most of them looked to be in their 30s or 40s. This time, those below the age of 50 could enter. Those who were 50 were half to one generation older than Lu Ming's generation. Naturally, there were more people. This formation could accommodate tens of thousands of people at the same time. However, a few minutes later, people were continuously being teleported out. They were covered in a layer of light, but they were all red. He had clearly been eliminated. These people haven't even reached the spirit embryo realm, so they naturally can't enter. Lu Ming shook his head. He could tell the cultivation of these people. More than 10 minutes later, more people were eliminated. Many of these people were covered in an orange glow, but they were still eliminated. Most of these people's cultivation was below the 6th level spirit embryo realm. After that, the people who were teleported out were all covered in yellow. These people all revealed looks of joy because they had succeeded. As long as the light on their bodies reached yellow, it would be considered a success. It seems that it's more or less enough to reach the 6th level spirit embryo realm and above. Lu Ming thought to himself. He realized that the people who had succeeded were generally at the 6th level spirit embryo realm or above. However, there were also young prodigies whose cultivation was below the 6th level spirit embryo realm, but their combat strength had obviously reached the 6th level spirit embryo realm or above. More than an hour later, the first batch of people who went in came out. The strongest few people were covered in purple light, which was extremely shocking. Lu Ming saw that Junyu and Xueluo Zi were all covered in purple light. However, most of the people who were covered in purple light were in their 30s or 40s. These people had been cultivating for a long time, and their combat strength was very strong. In the second batch, tens of thousands of people entered. From this, it could be seen how many people were gathered in Tianxia Academy. And this was only for those below the age of 50. If there was no age limit, the number of people would be terrifying. Lu Ming was also in the second group. Once he stepped into the formation, a puppet that looked like a demonic beast formed and pounced at him. Those below the spirit embryo realm. Lu Ming threw a punch, turning all the puppets into dust. At the same time, red essence chi flew over and covered Lu Ming's body. Following that, more puppets were formed. However, they were too weak and were easily killed by Lu Ming. The light that enveloped Lu Ming's body also slowly solidified and brightened. Slowly, the strength of the puppets that appeared became stronger and stronger. They had reached the spirit embryo realm, but Lu Ming still dealt with them with a single punch. Chapter 1065. 1065 Chapter 1065 Entering the Secret Realm. A few minutes later, the glow covering Lu Ming's body had turned orange. Just wait until you pass. Lu Ming thought of this and slowed down. Lu Ming planned to pass the test. Entering the secret realm of the Saint Mansion and making a fortune quietly was the most important thing. If he was too dazzling, he was afraid that many people would target him. Lu Ming deliberately used his movement technique to avoid many puppets. After dragging it out for more than 10 minutes, the light on Lu Ming's body turned yellow. At this time, He deliberately let one of the demonic beasts scratch him. Then, a ray of light shone on Lu Ming, and he was teleported out. When Lu Ming went out, many eyes fell on him. As Lu Ming had passed the Tianshu cave previously, he naturally received a lot of attention. However, at this moment, when they saw the glow on Lu Ming's body, they immediately caused a commotion. Nest, it's the kid who broke through the Tianshu cave. Why did he only hold on for so long? And why is he still emitting a yellow light? Like I said, he's just lucky. I guess he just happened to encounter something easy when he was challenging the Tianshu cave. It's said that in ancient times, someone passed the Tianshu cave without encountering anything. He's just lucky. He's trash. That's right, so this person is a weakling. I thought he was a rare heaven's favorite. I'll spit. All around them, pairs of disdainful eyes looked at Lu Ming and sneered at him. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He knew very well what was going on. Why should he care about other people's opinions? Lu Ming walked to the side and closed his eyes to rest. So you're a good-for-nothing. Shui Luo, Zi sneered. Wu Qingkong's eyes were cold. The selection continued. More than 100,000 people participated in the selection. In the end, 20,000 people passed the selection and could enter the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. Junyue, come up. Shui Luozi, come up. Kongling, come up. At this moment, the supremes of the major forces were summoning their heaven's favorites. Then, Junyu, Shui Luozi, Jing Kongling, Wu Qingkong, and the other strongest heaven's favorites all flew up into the sky. What's this for? Someone was surprised. I know. It's said that 30,000 years ago, the strong people of the world's academies could get a rare treasure from the secret realm of the Saint Mansion, called the Saint Mansion Life Talisman. They would carry a piece of the Saint Mansion Life Talisman with them. If they were killed in the secret realm, the Life Talisman would save the wearer's life and let them resurrect outside the Saint Mansion's secret realm. What? There's actually such a valuable treasure? That's right, but there aren't many of them left. I guess the major forces spent a lot of money to buy them from Tianxia Academy to protect the lives of their strongest geniuses. This is simply cheating. Many people sighed. They were both envious and helpless. With such a life talisman, he could be unscrupulous in the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. He didn't have to worry about losing his life. In that case, he could go to some dangerous places without worry. Naturally, Lu Ming heard everyone's discussion.
He could only sigh.
It was really good to have a big power as a backer. Very quickly, the various heavens' favorites were distributed. Everyone, I can tell you that the secret realm of the Saint Mansion is divided into 9 areas, so there are 9 light pillars. Each light pillar will appear in a different area. Now, each of the 9 forces has a light pillar. The other forces will follow the 9 forces in. Let's set off now. I'll say it again. Those who don't pass the screening are prohibited from entering. Otherwise, kill without mercy. A white-haired old man from the Tianxia Academy announced the rules. His eyes were like lightning as he scanned the surroundings. He was extremely majestic. Everyone trembled. This was a supreme being, and no one dared to disobey him. They immediately flew toward the Wanxiang Jade Wall. All of you, and all of you, follow us in. Some of the young men from the Sky Martial Sword faction pointed at a group of people. These people were from the smaller forces and had to enter with the 9 forces. This time, a total of 8 Overlord forces had come, in addition to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Although the Valley of the Medicine Masters was not an Overlord force, it had a good relationship with all the major forces and was very strong. It could be considered a major force and occupied the 9 pillars of light. The people from the small forces that were selected by the Sky Martial Sword faction followed the people from the Sky Martial Sword faction obediently and entered a light pillar. As expected, those below the age of 50 were fine. With a flash of light, they disappeared. You guys come with us. The Demon Mountain experts pointed at a group of people and entered a light pillar. Each force selected a group of people and entered a pillar of light, disappearing. You guys follow me. A brawny man from Cold Blood Hall pointed at a group of people. Lu Ming was among them. No, we're following Cold Blood Hall. Why do I have a bad feeling? Someone said in a low voice. He was very afraid of Cold Blood Hall. Cold Blood Hall had always been known for their ruthlessness. What's wrong? You don't want to follow us? Then don't go in. What are you bunch of trash going in for? The man from Cold Blood Hall shouted coldly, his eyes cold. Everyone's expression turned ugly. Lu Ming smiled faintly and stepped forward. He saw a cold gaze staring at him. It was Blood Luo Zi. Lu Ming sneered. There were no senior experts in the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. If these people continued to push their luck, Lu Ming would not mind killing them. In the end, the chosen ones still followed Cold Blood Hall and entered the light pillar. This was a great opportunity. Who would want to miss it? There was a flash of light. In the next moment, Lu Ming found himself on flat ground. This area was very flat, but there was a huge mountain standing in the distance. From the top of the mountain, a ray of light was emitted, forming a light shield that covered a huge territory. Lu Ming and the rest were now in the light shield.
Huh?
My true essence is being suppressed. It's hard for me to even fly. Me too. It's that light barrier. It has a powerful suppressing effect. At this time, a series of voices came from the surroundings. Lu Ming swept his gaze across the crowd and saw many Cold Blood Hall members. There were also many people who had entered the light pillar with him. Those who entered the same pillar of light would appear together. Lu Ming gave it a try and realized that his essential core was indeed greatly suppressed. Even if he could fly, his speed was extremely slow. There's a treasure on the peak of that giant mountain. Let's go and take a look. Many people had their eyes on the mountain and rushed forward.
Ah!
Suddenly, a scream came from the front. Light flickered, and flames soared into the sky. Someone was turned into ashes in the flames. Formation, there's a great formation here. Someone shouted. Lu Ming also rushed forward and observed carefully. Indeed, the path leading to the mountain was filled with arrays, and it was very dangerous. However, this further proved that there was a treasure up ahead. Otherwise, how could there be so many formations? Look, there are spirit herbs in front. Someone exclaimed. There was a small purple tree on a small hill in front of them. The small tree was crystal clear, as if it was made of purple jade. One look, and one could tell that it was extraordinary. There's more than one. Someone had found another spirit herb. On the way to the mountain, they found a lot of spirit herbs, all of which were extraordinary. Some people speculated that they were all at least level 8 spirit herbs, and there might even be level 9 spirit herbs. Many people's eyes were burning. Chapter 1066. 1066. The Overbearing Cold Blood Hall. Finally, someone couldn't help but carefully identify the formation, looking for a gap in the formation, and carefully move forward. However, the formation glowed, and a few more people were killed in the formation. Everyone was finally afraid. Although spirit herbs were good, one had to be alive to enjoy them. Otherwise, everything would be in vain. Many people wanted to retreat and leave this place to seek opportunities elsewhere.
Buzz. Whoosh.
Suddenly, a group of people in blood-red robes surrounded them. They were all Cold Blood Hall experts. What are you guys doing? Why are you blocking our way?
Someone asked.
What are you doing? Since we let you come in with Cold Blood Hall, you should at least do something and make a difference. Otherwise, what's the point of you trash coming in? Go ahead and lead the way. A burly man said in a cold voice. This man was in his 40s, half a generation older than Lu Ming and the others. His qi and blood were surging, and his aura was extremely powerful. His cultivation was unfathomable. This time he was the leader of the people from Cold Blood Hall.
What?
You want us to explore the way for Cold Blood Hall with our lives. No, I won't agree to that. A man in his prime refused. There were formations in front of them. Wouldn't they be courting death if they went to scout the way for Cold Blood Hall? You don't agree? Then die.
Buzz.
The brawny man from Cold Blood Hall took a step forward and suddenly appeared in front of the man. The man wanted to resist, but he was enveloped by a terrifying force and could not move. Pucci. The brawny man from Cold Blood Hall stabbed his hand into the man's chest like a knife. The man let out a shrill scream, and then, under everyone's horrified eyes, his body shriveled up and turned into a dry corpse. Cold Blood Hall's bloodthirsty technique. Someone's voice trembled, and his face was filled with fear. Now, are you guys going in or not? The brawny man from Cold Blood Hall looked at the crowd coldly. Everyone's face turned pale. I knew it. I wouldn't have a good ending if I followed Cold Blood Hall. I shouldn't have come in. Someone sighed. However, at this time, it was useless to say anything more. The group of people could only move forward. Brat, hurry up and go. Huang Kuei was among the Cold Blood Hall disciples, and he had his eyes on Lu Ming. Lu Ming cast a nonchalant glance at Huang Kuei, but did not make a move. Instead, he walked forward with the others. Shui Luozi stared at Lu Ming and sneered, his eyes cold. Hurry up. If you don't leave, kill. The brawny man shouted coldly. His name was Shui Feng, and he was the top master of the previous generation in Cold Blood Hall. Many people gritted their teeth and stepped forward. Light flickered, and a large array appeared. In an instant, more than 10 people were killed. It's too dangerous. I'm just looking for death if I go up like this. I beg you, let me go. Some of them were trembling in fear and begging for mercy. What is it called? Some people were not fine? If you keep shouting, I'll kill you right now. Shui Feng said maliciously. Sure enough, some people were fine. They didn't encounter the formation even after moving forward for 100 meters. This area was not completely filled with formations. There were some gaps that could be used to move forward. However, one needed to observe with good eyesight, and not everyone could see it. Lu Ming's figure flickered, and he continued to move forward for more than 100 meters, but nothing happened. This kid's luck is pretty good. Blood Luozi stared at Lu Ming with cold eyes. Previously, Lu Ming had refused to give him the opportunity to enter the marrow cleansing pool. As a result, he harbored a grudge against Lu Ming and had been looking for an opportunity to kill him. Lu Ming swept his gaze across the area and identified it carefully. With his eyesight, he could naturally tell which places were gaps and there were no arrays. His figure flickered left and right mountains before he came to a small hill. There was a small purple tree growing here. It was only a meter tall and was like purple jade. Essence chi filled the air, and it was very extraordinary. Purple gold tree. Lu Ming recognized the small tree. It was an upper 8th grade spiritual herb. If it was nurtured well, it could even bear purple gold fruits and evolve into a 9th grade spiritual herb. Lu Ming dug out the purplish gold tree and kept it. He would plant it in the mountain and river diagram when he had the time. Hey, kid, what are you doing? Who told you to keep the spirit herb? Quickly throw it out and give it to us. Huang Kuei had been staring at Lu Ming. When he saw that Lu Ming had put away the spirit herbs, he immediately shouted, Idiot! Lu Ming cast a glance at Huang Kuei and said indifferently, What did you just say? Kid, you're looking for death. You're dead. You know you're dead. Huang Kuei shouted angrily. Shui Feng and the others also looked at Lu Ming. Oh, come and kill me. Lu Ming pursed his lips. If you have the ability, don't come out. Huang Kuei looked at Lu Ming ferociously, his face flushed red. However, he did not dare to step forward. You cowardly rat. Lu Ming pursed his lips. His figure flashed, and he went to another spiritual herb. Very soon, he had also kept the other spiritual herb. No. He knows the Tao of inscription and can see the gaps in the formation. Xue Luozi roared as he saw through the situation. Lu Ming's movements were as smooth as floating clouds and flowing water. He was so fast that it did not seem like he was trying his luck. Instead, he could see the gaps. Ha, this group of idiots. On his shoulder, Dandan laughed heartily, her eyes shining. There were so many spirit herbs here that he was almost drooling. During this period of time, Dandan had eaten a large amount of spirit herbs. He felt that he was constantly recovering. He had already recovered a little and remembered many things. When he saw the spirit herbs at this time, his eyes simply shone. Damn it! Xue Luozi, Huang Kuei, Xue Feng, and the others gritted their teeth, wishing they could kill Lu Ming. Those who were lucky enough to survive the formation stopped moving. They did not need to fear Cold Blood Hall people in the formation, anyway. Lu Ming's figure flashed, and at least 7 to 8 spiritual herbs entered his pocket. This group of trash, they really deserve to die, used the sealing crystal. Xue Feng's killing intent flashed as a white crystal appeared in his hand. Senior brother Xue Feng, are we going to use the sealing crystal now? Xue Luozi and the others felt their hearts ache. In order for their disciples to enter the secret realm of the Saint Mansion and obtain opportunities, the major forces had prepared many secret treasures. The sealing crystal was an extremely rare treasure. Once it was used, it could freeze a formation, making it unable to explode. It was the most practical way to explore some secret realms. Yes, that mountain is no small matter. There should be a great treasure inside. Xue Feng clenched his teeth and then squeezed the crystal. Instantly, the sealing crystal shattered and turned into a layer of white light that rushed forward. Wherever the white light passed, it was as if a layer of white frost had been laid on the ground. All the larger rays were frozen. It's the sealing crystal. The formation is sealed. Let's charge.
Buzz.
Buzz. Those who were forced by Cold Blood Hall rose into the air and rushed into the depths of the mountain. You're looking for death. The Cold Blood Hall people shouted coldly and chased after the people from the small forces. A terrifying battle broke out in this area. Brat, die. Huang Kuei was the first to charge at Lu Ming. His blood-red claw radiance was aimed at Lu Ming. The claw ray was as sharp as a knife, aimed at Lu Ming's heart. It wanted to devour Lu Ming's blood and suck him dry. Boom. At this moment, Lu Ming moved and slapped him. Chapter 1067. 1067 Chapter 1067 Abusing Blood Luozi. Lu Ming smacked his palm, and the space trembled violently. This palm seemed to be able to suppress the heavens. Before the palm reached him, Huang Kuei felt as if hundreds of mountains were pressing down on him, and he couldn't even breathe. No. At this moment, he was panicking, shocked, and afraid. Lu Ming's small palm was so big that it could cover the sky and the sun in his eyes. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't. Bang! Lu Ming's palm landed on his body and a terrifying force exploded. Huang Kuei's entire body exploded into pieces. This time, everyone was shocked. Huang Kuei was the second most outstanding talent among the younger generation in Cold Blood Hall, but he was killed by Lu Ming with one slap. Kid, you do have some strength. But how dare you kill the talents of Cold Blood Hall? You're courting death.
Die.
Xue Luozi roared. He stepped in the air and a blood-red light shot up into the sky. He clenched his fist in the air and a saber formed, slashing at Lu Ming. Although Lu Ming had killed Huang Kuei with a single slap, Blood Luozi was still confident that he could kill Lu Ming. Huang Kuei was only at the great circle of the spirit embryo realm, but he was already a spirit god. He could kill Huang Kuei with a snap of his fingers. He did not believe that Lu Ming, who had suddenly appeared, could be his match. Boom. Lu Ming made his move, and it was still a slap. Boom. Blood Luozi's saber light was shattered by Lu Ming's palm. Bang. Lu Ming took a step forward and dashed toward Blood Luozi like a stream of light. Roar, roar, roar. During this process, dragon roars rang out from Lu Ming's body continuously. Dragon energy burst out one after another, and soon there were 5 bursts of dragon energy. Now that Lu Ming's physical body was complete rank 9, he was extremely powerful. Even if he used all his dragon energy, there would not be any scales on his skin. He could control everything. 5 dragon energies burst forth, and Lu Ming's strength increased rapidly. He activated the prison-suppressing heaven technique and struck down with his palm. Selah. In Lu Ming's hands, the space was torn like a rag. The terrifying power made Blood Luo Zi shiver. Not good. Shui Luo Zi was shocked. Blood vessels appeared above his head and turned into blood-winged bats. With a loud roar, the space surged toward Lu Ming like waves. However, Lu Ming's palm slashed across, and the sound wave was split in half. A terrifying force exploded and slammed heavily on the blood-winged bat. With a shrill scream, the blood-winged bat was sent flying, and blood splattered everywhere. Everyone was dumbfounded and in disbelief. A second-grade Heaven's favorite, Blood Luo Zi, was sent flying by Lu Ming with one move. His blood splattered across the sky. This was simply unbelievable. Who was this person? He was too terrifying. Previously, when he saw Lu Ming participating in the selection, he thought that Lu Ming was a weakling. Now, it seemed that Lu Ming had clearly hidden his strength. His actual combat strength was simply terrifying. Kill. Lu Ming took a step in the air and used the 9 dragons' heaven stomping steps. His figure instantly appeared on top of the blood-winged bat's head, and he stomped his feet.
Boom, boom,
boom. The terrifying power exploded, and the space was destroyed. The violent power hit Shui Luo Zi, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then his body collapsed, and he turned into a human.
Bang.
Lu Ming stomped hard on Blood Luo Zi's nose. His face caved in, and he fell heavily to the ground, creating a huge pit. Blood spurted out of his mouth. Currently, Lu Ming's cultivation was at the middle stage of the 1st-level spiritual god realm, which was slightly higher than Shui Luo Zi's. In addition, his 5 types of intent realms were almost at the 4th-level lower tier. With the 5 bursts of dragon energy, the power was too strong. Moreover, after Lu Ming reached the spiritual god realm, the power of the prison-suppressing heaven technique was even more terrifying. He could completely crush the Blood Luo Zi without even having to activate his blood meridian.
Stop.
You're looking for death, kid. The Cold Blood Hall members reacted and charged at Lu Ming with furious roars. Those who dared to attack Lu Ming were all in their 40s or 50s. They had cultivated for 10 to 20 years, more than Lu Ming and the rest, so their cultivation levels were very high. In an instant, 5 experts pounced on Lu Ming. 3 of them were 2nd-level spiritual god realm, and 2 were 3rd-level spiritual god realm.
Kill.
Lu Ming shouted, and 2 more bursts of dragon power erupted. The 9 dragon bloodline was now at divine level 7, and there were a total of 7 dragon powers, all of which were now erupting. Lu Ming's strength was extremely powerful. When he struck out with his palm, the world shook and the space shattered.
Bang, bang,
bang. In an instant, Lu Ming threw out 5 palm strikes and exchanged a palm strike with each of the 5 experts.
Bang, bang,
bang. The 3 2nd-level spiritual god realm men screamed as their bodies exploded. They were killed in one move. The 2 3rd-level spiritual god realm experts were also severely injured. They spat out large mouthfuls of blood and retreated rapidly, their eyes filled with fear. Around them, the eyes of the people from the small forces almost popped out. Initially, they thought that Lu Ming was a weakling. Now they knew that he was clearly a demon king. However, they were overjoyed. The stronger Lu Ming was, the more beneficial it would be for small forces like them. They would have a chance to escape from Cold Blood Hall. Swallow. Lu Ming's left palm clenched in the air, and the devouring power burst forth. The blood essence and energy of the 3 first-level spiritual god realm experts that were killed were all devoured by Lu Ming. Lu Shaoqing, you're Lu Shaoqing. Blood Luo Zi was still alive and shouted. He had fought with Lu Ming before and recognized the devouring power. What? He's Lu Shaoqing? Those who had heard of Lu Shaoqing's name were shocked.
Kill.
Lu Ming stepped on the air and charged towards the 2 injured 3rd-level spiritual god realm experts. The 2 of them were frightened and retreated at top speed. However, their speed could not be compared to Lu Ming's. Lu Ming's body was like a stream of light, closing in on them at top speed. His palm pressed down on the void and struck at the 2 of them. The 2 of them tried their best to block, but it was still useless. The palm force pressed down, and their arms exploded. Their chests caved in, and they spat out large mouthfuls of blood. They were barely breathing. Little thief, you're looking for death.
Kill.
Xue Feng roared. The other experts followed suit and pounced at Lu Ming. There were a few hundred people from Cold Blood Hall. Most of them were middle-aged strong men with strong cultivation and combat strength. Xue Feng was the most terrifying. Like a ray of bloodlight, he appeared in front of Lu Ming in an instant. With a punch, endless blood light flashed and spread, pressing down on Lu Ming. This attack was extremely terrifying. Lu Ming's expression changed, and he also threw a punch. The 2 fists collided. Lu Ming's body shook violently, and he was blasted away like a cannonball. He retreated 10,000 meters and smashed a first-level spiritual god expert into pieces. What powerful battle strength! Lu Ming felt his fist go numb, and the blood in his body was in turmoil.
He was a little shocked.
Xue Feng's strength was beyond his imagination. No wonder he was the top talent of the last generation of Cold Blood Hall. How dare you kill an expert from Cold Blood Hall? No one can save you today. Xue Feng's killing intent was like a tide as he closed in on Lu Ming. Around him, there were flashes of blood as other experts charged at Lu Ming.
Die.
Lu Shaoqing, die. At this moment, Blood Luo Zi had already struggled to get up. He glared at Lu Ming, his eyes about to spew fire. He was actually abused so badly by Lu Ming. His nose bridge was stepped on by Lu Ming and was deeply pressed down. His face was beyond recognition. He, the Blood Luo Master, had never been humiliated like this. His hatred for Lu Ming could not be described with words. Chapter 1068. 1068 The Battle with the Last Generation Cold Blood Hall Experts. Kill. Xue Feng was still the fastest, and he was the first to arrive. His fists were like blood diamonds, shining with a crystal-like luster. With a punch, the space was shattered, and it was extremely terrifying. 4th-level Spiritual God Realm. Lu Ming's gaze was solemn. Xue Feng's cultivation should be at the 4th level of the Spiritual God Realm. He was a very powerful genius with unparalleled combat strength. Lu Ming's entire body was surrounded by the 5-colored concept, increasing the power of the prison-suppressing heaven technique. He threw a few punches in a row.
Boom. Boom.
The 2 fists collided, and the sky shook. It was as if 2 gods were fighting. Then, Lu Ming was once again sent flying far away. It seems like I have to use my 3rd bloodline. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Xue Feng was too strong. Even if his talent was not as high as Xue Luo Zi's, it would not be lower than Huang Kuei's. He should have awakened a 7th-level divine-level bloodline. When he was young, he should have been a 3rd-grade Heaven's Pride. If they were at the same level, Lu Ming could easily kill such a prodigy. However, Xue Feng's cultivation was too high. He was at the 4th level of the Spiritual God Realm, which was 3 levels higher than Lu Ming. In the Spiritual God Realm, there was a huge gap between each level which was difficult to make up for, let alone a gap of 3 levels. Moreover, the opponent was also a top genius.
Kill. Kill.
In the surroundings, 3 men in their prime pounced over at the same time. Powerful auras filled the air. They were all 3rd-level spiritual gods. Moreover, these 3 people were a level higher than the 2 3rd-level spiritual gods from before.
Bang. Bang. Bang.
Lu Ming threw out a punch and exchanged 3 blows with the 3 of them. The 4 of them retreated at the same time. Behind him, Xuefeng quickly charged over.
Buzz.
At this moment, the mountain peak in the distance trembled. A bright light spread out, shocking everyone. "That is a door?" someone exclaimed. Everyone saw a door of light appear on the peak of the mountain. It was crystal clear and resplendent, emitting a brilliant light. "Treasure. It must be a peerless treasure. Let's go," some of the people from the small forces exclaimed. Then, they rushed toward the mountain peak with blazing lights. "Don't even think about it." Some Cold-Blood Hall people also rushed over. "Brat, you're lucky." Xuefeng glared at Lu Ming fiercely. He actually let go of Lu Ming and rushed towards the mountain peak. Although Xuefeng's combat strength was strong, Lu Ming's combat strength had also exceeded his expectations. It would be very difficult for him to kill Lu Ming in a few moves. If the treasure was taken by the people from the small forces, it would not be worth it. Therefore, he also rushed over. Charge. The other Cold-Blood Hall members also rushed over. Xue Luo glared at Lu Ming coldly and followed the Cold-Blood Hall disciples. "How can I leave when there's a treasure?" Lu Ming smiled and rushed over as well. Although Xuefeng was powerful, he still had a trump card that he had not used. If he used it, he would definitely have no problem escaping. Therefore, Lu Ming was not afraid at all.
Buzz.
Whoosh. The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Everyone flew forward, and after flying for a while, they discovered that there was no formation in front of them. That can't be a medicinal garden, right? Lu Ming looked behind him. The area that he had just passed looked like a herb garden. That was why it was protected by an inscription array. As they continued forward, a huge group of palaces appeared in front of them. The palace complex seemed to occupy a large area, but it was very ancient and full of the aura of time. Many places had collapsed. The mountain was right in the middle of the palaces. It looked as if the mountain had fallen from the sky and crashed into the center of the palaces, crushing a large area. At this moment, the door of light on the mountain was even more resplendent. He could vaguely see a jade talisman floating in the light door. The light door was a strange phenomenon formed by the light emitted by the jade talisman. Treasure. It's definitely a treasure. Someone shouted greedily and rushed toward the palace. "Get lost, you bunch of ants. You're looking for death."
Die.
Xuefeng shouted in anger as he continuously punched out. His fist radiance broke through the air, and instantly, more than a dozen martial artists screamed as they were killed. The others were shocked and quickly avoided Xuefeng. However, there were many people from the other major forces, and some of them were experts. After avoiding the blood seal, they didn't give up and continued to rush forward. A few hundred people rushed towards the mountain peak. Lu Ming followed behind at a steady pace. The palace complex was not dangerous, and there were no formations either. The group flew over smoothly and arrived in front of the mountain. This mountain looked like a tiger lying there. It looked very lifelike, as if it was carved from a huge rock. On the peak of the mountain, there were strange lines protruding like petrified tree roots. What a strange shape, what a strange mountain. However, they didn't have much time to think about it. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the door of light and the jade talisman. The jade talisman was right on top of the tiger's head. Everyone flew towards the mountain peak. An intense battle had erupted. The Cold-Blood Hall's experts were extremely domineering. They charged at the people from the small forces, killing a large number of experts and staining Tiger Mountain with blood. No one noticed that the fresh blood that was scattered on the mountain had seeped into the mountain and disappeared, as if it had been devoured. This is the moment. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He used the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps and turned into a stream of light. He instantly surpassed the experts of Cold Blood Hall and rushed toward the light door. "Brat, you still dare to come? You're looking for death." Xue Feng bellowed and continuously swung his fists at Lu Ming. Lu Ming took a few steps and dodged the fist radiance. "Let's attack together and kill him." Blood Luo Zi shouted and ordered everyone to kill Lu Ming.
Kill. Kill. Kill.
Some of the Cold Blood Hall disciples charged at Lu Ming, while the rest continued to rush at the light door. At this time, dozens of people from the other small forces had been killed. The remaining people were frightened and no longer dared to fight for it. They desperately retreated. Cold Blood Hall had complete control of the battle. Xue Feng's speed was the fastest. Just as he was about to rush out of the light door, his eyes revealed a burning flame. This jade talisman was definitely a valuable treasure. It might be a powerful inheritance. Whoosh! At this moment, a dark light shot out from the mountain and swept toward Xue Feng. Xue Feng was shocked and immediately threw out a few punches to block the black light. A tree root, no, a vine. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. He realized that the thing that attacked Xue Feng was a vine. "Who dares to stop me? You're courting death." Xue Feng roared as he punched out with both fists, wanting to crush everything. At this moment, Lu Ming had already exchanged more than a dozen moves with the Cold Blood Hall people. There were more than a dozen people surrounding Lu Ming. There were a few powerful experts.
Buzz. Buzz.
Blood light filled the air as the experts of Cold Blood Hall activated their bloodlines. 3 of them had 5th-level divine level bloodlines, and their cultivation was at the 3rd level of the spiritual god realm. They were the most powerful and had astonishing combat strength. These 3 were the main forces to fight against Lu Ming. Some of the others had 4th or 3rd level divine level bloodlines, and their cultivation levels were in the 2nd or 3rd tier of the spiritual god realm. They were the elites of Cold Blood Hall and had strong combat strength, but Lu Ming could handle them easily. They were mainly 3 experts with divine level rank 5 bloodlines. A 5th-level divine level expert was already very talented and had powerful combat strength. In addition, his cultivation was 2 levels higher than Lu Ming's. When the 3 of them joined forces, their combat strength was naturally astonishing. Chapter 1069. 1069 Bloodthirsty Vine. "I'll send you on your way." Lu Ming was really angry. A drop of blood appeared on top of his head.
It was the 3rd bloodline.
The 3rd bloodline emerged, and a trace of energy poured into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body suddenly burst out with a shocking killing intent. Lu Ming's jet-black hair turned blood-red in an instant. His eyes were like blood-red gemstones, filled with a terrifying murderous intent. Kill. Lu Ming's strength increased greatly after he borrowed a trace of the 3rd bloodline's energy. He struck out with his palm, and the saber in the hands of a 3rd-tier spiritual god expert with a 5th-level divine level bloodline was shattered. Lu Ming's palm struck him, and his body immediately exploded.
Buzz.
Above his head, the 3rd bloodline twisted and turned into a blood-red sword in Lu Ming's hand. His killing intent grew stronger and enveloped the dozen Cold Blood Hall experts. They shivered from head to toe. Whoosh! With a flash of blood-red light, the blood-red sword slashed out, cutting through the void. 4 to 5 spiritual god realm experts were cut into 2 by the sword and died one after another, including an expert in the 3rd level of the spiritual god realm who had awakened a 5th-level divine bloodline.
Ah!
The rest of the people screamed in fear and retreated frantically, distancing themselves from Lu Ming. Why would I? Not far away, Xue Feng, Xue Luozi, and the others widened their eyes in shock. How could Lu Ming be so terrifying? His combat strength was too shocking. Lu Ming could even kill a third-level spiritual god realm expert in seconds. Kill. Lu Ming's eyes were cold, and his killing intent was like a tide. He held the combat sword and charged at the other Cold Blood Hall members like a god of death. He waved his sword, and a few more heads flew up. Swallow. Then, he clenched his left palm, and the devouring power burst out, trying to devour the blood essence and vital essence of the Cold Blood Hall experts. This was because he discovered that there was a powerful force in the mountain that was also devouring the blood of the Cold Blood Hall members. Lu Ming was a step too late and only devoured a small amount. Most of the blood was devoured by the mountain. What's going on? Before Lu Ming could react, banging sounds could be heard from the mountain. The tree root-like protrusions that were spread on the mountain actually moved. The rocks exploded and turned into vines that whipped toward Lu Ming and the rest. Shrill screams were heard. Some Cold Blood Hall members were pierced by the vines and shriveled at a visible speed. The vines wriggled like straws, absorbing the blood. Bloodthirsty vine. This is the legendary bloodthirsty vine. Some Cold Blood Hall disciples exclaimed. It's actually the bloodthirsty vine. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. It turned out that the protrusion on the mountain was the bloodthirsty vine's vine. It was probably because too much time had passed that the vine was covered with a layer of soil. The soil had turned into rocks, so everyone thought that it was rock at first. But it was the bloodthirsty vine. The bloodthirsty vine was a terrifying creature. It had appeared in ancient times and was almost extinct in recent times. Every time the bloodthirsty vine appeared, it would cause a catastrophe and bring about a bloody storm. This was because the bloodthirsty vine could constantly devour fresh blood. As long as it devoured fresh blood, the bloodthirsty vine's strength would continue to evolve. It was truly terrifying. Many Cold Blood Hall disciples turned pale with fear. Whoosh, whoosh. Some of the vines were even thicker than humans and were incomparably huge as they charged towards the crowd. Cold Blood Hall disciples were constantly killed, and their blood was sucked dry. Among them, Xue Feng suffered the most attacks. Several thick vines surrounded him because his qi and blood were the most concentrated. Damn it! A blood leopard with 7 golden chakras appeared above Xue Feng's head. Xue Feng had a 7th level divine level bloodline. He had transformed into a blood leopard and had astonishing battle prowess. The blood leopard's claws slashed out, and several spatial cracks appeared in the space, tearing apart a blood-colored vine. The other bloodthirsty vines were also severely injured. Lu Ming was also attacked by 2 vines. The blood-red sword gleam slashed, and one of the vines was cut off. This bloodthirsty vine has just woken up, and its combat strength is not strong. Let's join forces and kill it. Xue Feng shouted. Kill. All the Cold Blood Hall experts who had awakened their divine bloodlines activated their bloodlines and attacked the blood-red vines together.
Boom, boom.
The energy shot out, and the rumbling continued. The blood-red vines were blown apart and broken one by one. Some of the energy landed on the mountain, causing it to explode and rocks to fly everywhere. When the rocks on the mountain exploded, everyone was shocked to find that there were hairs under the rocks. Inside were bodies of flesh and blood. Those are demonic beasts. This time, everyone was clear in their hearts. This tiger-shaped mountain wasn't a huge mountain. It was clearly a huge demonic beast in the shape of a tiger. From the looks of it, the tiger-shaped demonic beast and the bloodthirsty vine had a great battle, and in the end, both sides were injured. The tiger-shaped demonic beast was killed and fell into this group of palaces, while the bloodthirsty vine was also seriously injured and dying. It wrapped itself around the tiger-shaped demonic beast. After a long time, it had covered its body with a layer of rocks, looking like a mountain. But now, stimulated by the fresh blood, the bloodthirsty vine woke up again. Hurry up and get the jade talisman, then leave this place. Shui Feng roared. This was a bloodthirsty vine that had lived for an unknown amount of time. It had been sealed for such a long time, yet it could still wake up. It was too shocking and made people's hearts tremble. Shui Feng had a bad premonition and didn't dare to stay any longer. He wanted to take the jade talisman and leave this place as soon as possible. Squeak. At this moment, an ear-piercing sound was heard.
Boom.
The mountain trembled, and at the highest point of the mountain, a huge protrusion shook and rocks exploded. That was the main body of the bloodthirsty vine. The bloodthirsty vine was about to awaken completely. Just now, it was only the vines that had moved. Just like an octopus, it had only moved its tentacles earlier, but now its main body was about to wake up. Shui Feng transformed into a blood leopard and pounced forward, blocking many of the vines. The other Cold Blood Hall disciples rushed toward the jade talisman. Whoosh! Lu Ming swung his sword and cut off a vine. He then used the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps and charged toward the jade talisman.
Die!
The blood sword slashed, and a terrifying blood-red sword mark cut through the sky, cutting more than a dozen Cold Blood Hall experts in half. Little thief, I will kill you.
Die!
Shui Feng roared. His eyes were bloodshot. So many experts had been killed by Lu Ming. He wanted to vomit blood. Unfortunately, he was blocking a pile of vines alone and couldn't get away at all. Cold Blood Hall will be the ones to die today.
Kill!
Lu Ming said coldly and charged forward, killing a few more people. That damned Lu Shaoqing. In front of him, Shui Luozi was terrified. He gritted his teeth and rushed toward the jade talisman. He was only a few dozen meters away from the jade talisman. But at this moment, a few vines rushed out from the ground and whipped towards him. Damn it! He roared angrily, but he was blocked.
Bang! Bang!
The rocks exploded, and more vines appeared around the jade talisman, blocking all the Cold Blood Hall experts. Lu Ming, leave the jade talisman to me. Dandan spread rumors to Lu Ming. All right. Lu Ming grabbed Dandan and threw her in the direction of the jade talisman. He stared at Blood Luozi. He took a step forward and charged at Shui Luozi. Chapter 1070. 1070 Peak First Level Spiritual God Realm. Damn it, stop him. Shocked, Blood Luozi quickly retreated and hid behind the other Cold Blood Hall experts. Lu Ming dashed forward and swept his sword across. Cold Blood Hall experts were killed one by one. Of course, not all of them were in the spiritual God realm. Many of them were in the spirit embryo realm. They could not stop Lu Ming at all. In a flash, Lu Ming appeared in front of Blood Luo.
No. No.
Blood Luozi screamed and tried to escape, but Lu Ming's sword cut him in half. What? The next moment, Lu Ming frowned. He saw a ball of white light wrap around Blood Luozi's body and fly into the sky. The next moment, Blood Luozi's body regrouped. He was not dead, but his eyes were filled with hatred. Lu Shaoqing, Cold Blood Hall will not let you off. With a loud roar, Shui Luozi disappeared in a flash of white light. Life Talisman. Lu Ming muttered. He had heard that the most powerful geniuses of the major forces had the life talisman of the Saint Mansion. Even if they died, they could be resurrected outside. It seemed to be true. Amazing! Lu Ming sighed. This kind of life talisman was integrated with the heaven and earth rules of this secret realm. It was mysterious and unpredictable. As long as one wore the life talisman, one could not be killed. Lu Ming felt that it was a pity. However, the others from Cold Blood Hall did not have this kind of treatment. If they died, they would really die. At this time, Dandan rushed toward the jade talisman, and at least a dozen vines whipped at him. Dandan stepped in the void, and an inscription formation appeared. Its body actually flashed in the air, avoiding the vines and rushed past, appearing in front of the jade talisman. He grabbed the jade talisman with one claw and stuffed it into his mouth. "Let's go, we got it!" Dandan shouted and ran forward. Squeak! At this time, an ear-piercing sound resounded through the world. In the sky above the mountain, the rocks exploded. The main body of the bloodthirsty vine had completely awakened and let out a furious roar. It was a lump-like object, like a root, with countless vines extending out from it. Countless vines danced wildly and whistled through the air. In an instant, dozens of Cold-Blood Hall disciples in the spirit embryo realm were killed by the vines, and their blood was all devoured. After devouring the fresh blood, the bloodthirsty vine's aura became stronger and more terrifying. "Go, quickly go!"
Die!
Shui Feng roared. He waved his claws and broke several vines before running forward. The remaining Cold-Blood Hall disciples also fled for their lives. Dandan was extremely agile, and its inscriptions glowed. The vines actually couldn't catch it. Lu Ming stepped on the air and flew in the direction of Dandan.
Buzz!
Dandan leaped onto Lu Ming's shoulder and shouted, "Go! Quickly go!" It was because the bloodthirsty vine had its eyes on them and was chasing after Lu Ming. Lu Ming used the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps, and his speed was shockingly fast. With a flash of light, his figure disappeared into the distance. In all directions, the people from the small forces and the remaining Cold-Blood Hall experts took the opportunity to escape. After running for tens of thousands of miles, the Cold-Blood Hall people rushed out of the light shield. Without the light barrier's suppression, their speed skyrocketed. They turned into streaks of blood light and disappeared from this place. They only stopped after they had traveled a few 100,000 miles. Then, they all looked at each other. "Lu Shaoqing, you deserve to die." Shui Feng almost vomited blood as he roared with red eyes. Tragic, too tragic. Cold-Blood Hall had sent in hundreds of people, but at this time, there were less than 100 people left. At least 200 people had died. Most of them were spirit embryo realm martial artists, but there were also quite a few who were strong practitioners of the spiritual god realm. The most important thing was that the 10 strongest people of the young generation of Cold-Blood Hall were almost all dead. Only 2 people were left, and there were only 3 people left, including Master Shui Luo, who is still alive because of the life talisman. It was really too tragic. The losses were incomparably heavy. Among them, Lu Ming had killed more than 10 spiritual god experts. There were not many spiritual god experts even in the Overlord forces. Lu Ming had killed more than half of Cold-Blood Hall's previous talents. "Lu Shaoqing, if I don't kill you, I'm not a human." Shui Feng roared, his voice spreading out for hundreds of miles. Lu Ming sprinted madly. After tens of thousands of miles, he had also rushed out of the light shield's range. His speed increased greatly, but the bloodthirsty vine was chasing after him. Lu Ming used all his strength and flew for hundreds of thousands of miles before he managed to shake off the bloodthirsty vine. This guy is really hard to deal with. After finding a secret place, Lu Ming entered the mountain and river diagram. He heaved a long sigh and then began to refine the blood essence energy that he had devoured. Tianxia Academy, outside the Wanxiang Jade Wall. Suddenly, the space trembled. With a flash of light, Shui Luozi's body appeared. Instantly, everyone's eyes fell on Shui Luozi. Shui Luozi was dead. Everyone knew that he had died in the battle because of the life talisman. This was the first heaven's favorite to die in battle with a life talisman. "Blood Luozi, what's going on?" An elder from Cold-Blood Hall asked. He was a supreme of Cold-Blood Hall. The others also looked at Blood Luozi. They were very curious about what had happened inside. Blood Luozi had actually died in battle. "Lu Shaoqing, it's Lu Shaoqing." Shui Luozi roared viciously and explained the situation briefly. "What? It's that trash." After hearing this, everyone was shocked. Many people were dumbfounded. Lu Ming's passing of the Tianshu cave had attracted many people's attention. However, during the screening later on, Lu Ming's results were too poor. Many people thought that Lu Ming was a weakling who had passed the Tianshu cave by luck. However, after hearing what Master Xueluo said, many people felt a lingering fear. This wasn't a battle trash. He was clearly a god of killing, Ashura. That guy is just pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. That's right. He's too despicable. He must have hidden his strength before. Lu Shaoqing, I've heard of him. He appeared in the city of Dan before. That time, he defeated Blood Luo Zi. He's a heaven's favorite who suddenly appeared. Haha, Cold Blood Hall has suffered a great loss this time. They actually chose a god of killing to go in with them. Many people were discussing loudly. Some overlords, such as the Sky Eagle Castle and the Floating Mountain, were not afraid of Cold Blood Hall at all. They looked at Cold Blood Hall with ridicule. The Cold Blood Hall members were so angry that their lungs hurt, and they had the urge to vomit blood. Especially Xueluozi, who was so angry that his stomach hurt. He was the one who had chosen Lu Ming to enter. Lu Ming had not given him the quota for the marrow cleansing pool and had even mocked him. He had planned to make Lu Ming regret it in the Saint Mansion's secret realm. He had never expected to bring a god of death in. If it were not for Lu Ming, they would not have been so miserable even if they had to face the bloodthirsty vine. He was completely to blame. I hope Xuefeng can kill that bastard. The Cold Blood Hall members gritted their teeth, hoping that Xuefeng could kill Lu Ming. In the secret realm of the Saint Mansion, Lu Ming was refining the blood essence with all his might. A few hours later, the energy of the blood essence had been completely refined. Lu Ming's cultivation level increased rapidly, reaching the peak of the first level of the spiritual god realm in one go. However, his bloodline did not improve. Now that Lu Ming's 2 types of blood vessels were at divine level 7, it was very, very difficult to improve them. He needed a huge amount of blood essence. It's a pity that a large portion of the blood essence was devoured by the bloodthirsty vine. Otherwise, if I were to devour all the energy of so many experts, it would be enough for me to break through to the 2nd level of the spiritual god realm. Lu Ming felt that it was a pity. It's still not safe here. The bloodthirsty vine is an ancient evil creature. Once it's born, it'll go crazy and kill people. Its strength will skyrocket. I'd better stay away from it first. After exiting the mountain and river diagram, Lu Ming flew into the distance. Lu Ming only slowed down after flying for more than 1,000,000 miles. Chapter 1071. 1071 Chapter 1071 The place where the strong are in seclusion. Lu Ming only stopped here. The distance was far enough and the bloodthirsty vine should not be able to catch up. Dandan, what kind of treasure is that jade talisman? Lu Ming asked Dandan. He was very curious. Take it and see for yourself. She opened her mouth and the jade talisman flew out. Lu Ming reached out and took it. Dandan didn't have much interest in things that weren't spiritual medicine. Dandan, your strength has improved a lot recently. Lu Ming said. Previously, Dandan was able to snatch the jade talisman from the bloodthirsty vine and escape with ease, displaying her powerful abilities. Lu Ming was very curious. Of course, that's why I asked you to give me more spirit herbs. Also, the last time you went through a tribulation, I swallowed some thunder tribulation. That thing was very nourishing and helped me recover a lot. Dandan said with a smug look. The heavenly tribulation is a great supplement. Lu Ming was speechless. This guy was really mysterious. Back then, when the Thunder Cauldron was going through its tribulation, this guy swallowed the heavenly tribulation in one gulp. At that time, it was still an egg. How is it? Have you been subdued by my divine might? In the future, follow this Lord well and serve him well. You'll have a good life. Dandan was smug and had already started to feel smug. Go in. Lu Ming immediately grabbed Dandan and stuffed him into the mountain and river diagram. Then, he looked at the jade talisman in his hand and scanned it with his spiritual sense. After breaking through to the spiritual god realm and forming a spiritual god, one would be able to form spiritual consciousness, which was more effective than the eyes and could sense everything. The next moment, Lu Ming's face lit up. The 9 seals of the Gate of God is a sealing art, a powerful secret art. Lu Ming mumbled to himself and studied it carefully. The more he studied it, the more surprised he was. The 9 seals of the Gate of God. After a martial artist cultivated it, he would be able to form a sealing gate that could seal his opponents. When he cultivated it to a high level, he would be able to seal the heavens, the earth, people, and everything. It was extremely terrifying. Amazing, too amazing. The more he comprehended, the more amazed Lu Ming was. He discovered the formidability of the 9 seals of the Gate of God. This was a terrifying secret technique. It was left behind by an emperor in the secret realm of the Saint Mansion countless years ago. It had been lost in the outside world for countless years. Lu Ming simply found a hidden place and entered the mountain and river diagram. He sat cross-legged under the path understanding ancient tree and studied it carefully. Now, the path understanding ancient tree had grown 3 leaves, and it was even more extraordinary. It was surrounded by the aura of the great path, and people could enter a state of emptiness if they sat on the side. Lu Ming was fully focused on understanding the 9 seals of the Gate of God. Slowly, a mysterious light emanated from his body. As time passed, the light began to condense and turned into a door of light. It was like a gate of God that led to an eternal unknown place. Time flew by, and 3 days passed.
Buzz.
Buzz. All of a sudden, Lu Ming's hands formed a seal at top speed. A door of light condensed and flew toward Dandan in front of him. The door of light glowed and enveloped Dandan in an instant. What are you doing, Nest? Dandan's 4 limbs danced wildly, as if she was suppressed. It was not until Dandan's entire body glowed and inscribed all kinds of formations that she managed to escape. The effect is not bad. Lu Ming smiled. Even the vampiric vine could not stop Dandan. Her escaping skills were unfathomable and she was slippery. However, even Dandan was suppressed by the sealing door for a while due to her carelessness. Lu Ming was very satisfied with the power of the sealing door. If it was anyone else, they would definitely be sealed by the sealing door. In a battle between experts, even if one was sealed for a moment, life and death could be decided. Moreover, the power of the sealing door would increase as Lu Ming's cultivation level increased. It could be one of Lu Ming's killing weapons. In particular, Lu Ming had just started cultivating and could only cultivate 1 sealing door. The 9 seals of the Gate of God could be cultivated to the highest level and 9 sealing doors could be cultivated. That would be truly terrifying. Every time he cultivated an additional sealing door, his power would increase by several times. We've already wasted 3 days. We can't waste any more time. It's rare to enter the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. We can't waste it. With a single thought, Lu Ming exited the mountain and river diagram. He randomly chose a direction and flew forward. Dandan also climbed onto Lu Ming's shoulder and looked around to see if there were any spiritual herbs. Roar! A giant wolf appeared on a mountain in front of them. It was as big as a mountain, and its body was acylavir white. It howled at the sky, and the entire mountain range shook violently. So strong. Lu Ming's expression changed drastically. He concealed his aura and landed on a mountain range below to observe from afar.
Boom, boom, boom.
All of a sudden, the mountain range beneath Lu Ming's feet moved. It shook violently before it rose into the air and flew toward the giant wolf. Nest. It was only then that Lu Ming realized that what he was standing on was not a mountain range, but a giant snake. The giant snake was as large as a mountain. Its body was covered with soil, rocks, and trees. It lay there unmoving, like a mountain range. The Titan snake. No, even if it's not a pure-blooded Titan snake, it's almost there. Looming wailed and quickly flew to the side. Fortunately, the giant snake only had eyes for the giant Selavira wolf and did not pay any attention to Looming.
Ow!
The giant Selavira wolf roared and stomped its feet. The mountain under it exploded, and its huge body pounced toward the giant snake. The two behemoths fought each other. For a time, the world shook and the mountains kept shattering. What a powerful beast! It's definitely not from the outside world. It's a powerful beast that grew up in the secret realm of the Saint Mansion. Looming stayed far away and did not dare to approach. These two beasts were definitely at the advanced spiritual god realm. They were extremely terrifying. This secret realm is very dangerous. I encountered the bloodthirsty vine before, and now I've encountered two powerful fierce beasts. I have to be more careful in the future. Looming concealed his aura and flew carefully. Not long after, he saw a few saber marks on a cliff. After studying them carefully, he realized that they were left by peerless powerhouses. If a saber practitioner were to study them carefully, he would definitely gain something. It's rumored that 30,000 years ago, a supreme expert came here to cultivate. This blade mark is probably left behind by a supreme expert who had comprehended something while he was cultivating. Looming made a guess. If that was the case, there would definitely be a lot of such traces in the secret realm. If he were to encounter something suitable, it would definitely be a great opportunity. Looming did not stay there for long. He did not practice swordsmanship, and the marks did not match him. Along the way, they discovered many spiritual herbs. Looming only kept a few, and gave the rest to Dandon. There's someone in front. A day later, Looming saw a figure flying past in front of him. They were not from Coldblood Hall, but from other forces. There were 9 light pillars when one entered the secret realm of the Saint Mansion, which led to 9 different areas. However, these 9 areas were all connected, and were all in the same secret realm. The major forces began to enter separately in order to avoid disputes as soon as they entered. However, as time passed, the people from the 9 regions would definitely meet. Looming guessed that he had already arrived at the other areas. Looming flew forward and saw many people gathered under a stone wall, observing and comprehending in detail. Looming stepped forward and noticed that there were strange patterns on the stone wall. Upon closer inspection, there was a mysterious aura flowing. It was obvious that this was also a place where the most powerful person cultivated. Chapter 1072. 1072 Chapter 1072 Woot Song. Looming carefully thought about it and realized that it was not of much use to him. He was about to leave. Get lost. Suddenly, a loud roar could be heard. In the sky, a young man in white with a long sword on his back stepped through the air. A terrifying sword power emanated from his body, pressing down on everyone. Woot Song. Woot Song of the Heavenly Martial Sword School. Many people's expressions changed. The Heavenly Martial Sword sect was extremely prosperous. It was one of the top forces in the central continent, and few forces could compare to it. In this generation, the Heavenly Martial Sword School also produced many Heaven's favorites. There were 2 second-grade Heaven's favorites, Wu Chengkong and Woot Song. Wu Chengkong was the top talent of the Tianwu sword sect, while Woot Song was the second. Don't look at how he was ranked second. His strength wasn't any weaker than Yin Bupo, Jun Yu, and the others. With 2 Heaven's favorites in one generation, the Heavenly Martial Sword sect's reputation was like the sun in the sky. Get lost. I want this place. Woot Song stood high above and looked down. Many people gritted their teeth. This place was huge. Wu Tsang could clearly choose a place to comprehend, but he wanted to chase others away. However, he didn't dare to voice his anger, and could only leave. Many people were just in the middle of comprehending and had no choice but to stop and leave. "You're still not leaving?" Wu Tsang looked at Lu Ming, his eyes sharp like lightning. Lu Ming's expression was calm. He glanced at Wu Tsang and walked away. This place was of no use to him. He had planned to leave anyway, so there was no need to fight with Wu Tsang. The Heavenly Martial Sword School is really overbearing.
Keep it down.
The Heavenly Sword sect has sent many powerful cultivators here. The top cultivator of the previous generation is here too. He's not as talented as Wu Tsang and Wu Qingkong, but he's been cultivating for more than 10 years. He's very powerful. We'd better not offend him. Some people discussed in low voices and left the place. Lu Ming headed north and soon reappeared 10,000 miles away.
Gah!
A cry resounded through the sky as a giant eagle flew across the sky. What a powerful aura! This was also a terrifyingly powerful bird of prey, the overlord of this secret realm. The giant eagle flew to a cliff in front of them and landed. Lu Ming then realized that there was a nest on the cliff. From afar, Lu Ming noticed that there was a strange aura on the cliff. There were vague traces on it that seemed to be a human figure. There are traces left behind by an omnipotent expert. I wonder if it'll be of any use to me. Lu Ming carefully approached the giant eagle's nest and waited patiently. This wait lasted for an entire day. The next day, the giant eagle let out a long cry, spread its wings, and flew away from its nest. The giant eagle was far away. Lu Ming rushed to the bottom of the cliff to take a closer look. There was a figure carved on the cliff wall, and this figure seemed to be launching an attack.
Boom!
Boom! He took a closer look and saw that the figure seemed to be moving. A terrifying killing intent burst out and enveloped Lu Ming.
Kill!
With a loud shout, the figure's palm struck towards Lu Ming. A terrifying killing intent enveloped Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body turned cold, and he could not muster up any thoughts of resistance. The other party's palm directly landed on his body. Lu Ming was shocked. He retreated backward, only to realize that everything was an illusion. Amazing! Lu Ming heaved a long sigh of relief. He was a little shocked but also a little excited. This was a martial technique that was extremely powerful and contained killing intent. It could even affect one's mind. Lu Ming's third blood meridian was able to make use of the powerful slaughter concept. This martial art technique was very useful to Lu Ming. I'll try to comprehend it here and see if I can comprehend this battle technique, Zhang Xian said. Lu Ming stepped forward and took a closer look. Lu Ming guarded his heart tightly and nothing moved.
Buzz!
This time it wasn't a palm strike. A sword appeared in the figure's hand, and he slashed out. Lu Ming did not move and let the sword cut through him. Sure enough, the combat sword was like a phantom. After a slash, it performed the next move. This time, it turned into a saber.
Buzz! Whoosh!
This figure moved unhindered, displaying all sorts of attacks. The weapon in his hand was also unpredictable. What an amazing martial skill! Lu Ming looked at it for a while and finally figured out something. This kind of martial technique didn't have a fixed form, or rather, the form was only on the surface. The main point was the intent. After understanding the intent of this martial technique, any weapon would be able to exert great power. This was a killing style, specially created for killing people, and its power was extremely strong. Lu Ming sat cross-legged in the air, comprehending and studying in detail. In the evening, a screech resounded through the sky. The giant eagle had returned. Lu Ming left the place and sat cross-legged not far away to continue his comprehension. The next day, after the giant eagle left, Lu Ming returned to the cliff to continue his comprehension. Brat, get lost. Suddenly, A loud roar interrupted Lu Ming's comprehension. There was a cold glint in Lu Ming's eyes. He turned to look. Wu Song, this person again. Now he had his eyes on this cliff. Get lost, Lu Ming shouted coldly. Wu Song was stunned. He did not expect that Lu Ming would dare to tell him to scram. Then, Wu Song's eyes were filled with killing intent. He stared at Lu Ming and said, "Kid, do you know who you're talking to? If you say the wrong thing, you'll have to pay with your life. Get lost." Lu Ming's voice turned colder as he said the second word. "You're looking for death.
Die."
Wu Song shouted coldly. His sword chi surged, and he slashed out his palm. A terrifying sword radiance slashed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming casually waved his hand and sent the sword gleam flying. He then stood up and walked toward Wu Song. "You have some ability, but you're wrong to be arrogant in front of me," Wu Song shouted as he unsheathed his sword. Whoosh! The combat sword cut through the void, leaving a horrifying crack in the space. Roar, roar, roar! A dragon's roar resounded from within Lu Ming's body. His dragon power burst forth, and a purple light emanated from Lu Ming's body. With a palm strike, Wu Song's sword chi was destroyed. Lu Ming did not stop and continued to move toward Wu Song. "You!" Wu Song was shocked. He found it unbelievable. Lu Ming's combat strength was far beyond his imagination. Where did this expert come from? Wu Song didn't have time to think. He quickly retreated, and a battle sword bloodline appeared above his head. It was a divine level 8th bloodline. He performed the blood fusion and transformed into a combat sword. He slashed out a shocking sword radiance in an attempt to cut Lu Ming in half. Clang! Lu Ming clenched his fists and activated the prison suppressing heaven technique, striking the sword with a terrifying force. The combat sword trembled crazily and almost fell apart, flying far away.
Buzz.
Lu Ming took a step forward and threw a punch. The combat sword shook violently and was sent flying tens of thousands of meters away, cutting 2 mountains in half. Run, run! Wu Song was terrified. He controlled his sword and turned to run. Lu Ming stepped into the air and gave chase. Wu Song transformed into a sword beam and was extremely fast. He flew hundreds of miles in an instant. However, Lu Ming was even faster. He approached at an extreme speed, and Wu Song was almost scared out of his wits. "Stop. I'm a disciple of the Heavenly Martial Sword faction. If you dare to attack me again, you'll be making an enemy out of the Heavenly Martial Sword faction." Wu Song was afraid. He brought up the Tianwu sword sect in hopes of subduing Lu Ming. Chapter 1073. 1073 5 Killing Styles. Lu Ming sneered and continued to step forward, clenching his fist and punching. Without a doubt, Lu Sheng had exploded with 7 rays of dragon energy, activated the prison suppressing heavenly art, and combined with the 5-colored will, the power was terrifying. Clang! Another punch landed on the sword. This time, Wu Song couldn't block it anymore. The sword exploded, revealing his true body. He spat out a mouthful of blood and ran away frantically. Heavens, who is that? It seems to be Wu Song. Yes, it's him. He's actually fleeing and being hunted down. Who's so powerful? Can you chase after Wu Song? Then, isn't that the loser? He's the one who's chasing after Wu Song.
He's so terrifying.
He just destroyed Wu Song's bloodline fusion with 1 punch. What trash. He's clearly a rare heaven's favorite with unparalleled combat strength. No wonder he could pass the Tiangang cave. Not far away, 5 or 6 people were passing by. When they saw the scene, they were dumbfounded. Wu Song did not know Lu Ming because Wu Song was not there when they went to the Tianshu cave. He only arrived after the secret book of the Saint Mansion was opened. However, the few people who passed by recognized Lu Ming. Back then, they had thought that Lu Ming had passed the Tianshu cave by luck. Now they were really shocked and thought that they were dreaming. Lu Ming cast the 9 dragons' heaven-treading steps at an astonishing speed. He caught up with Wu Tsang in a few moments and threw another punch. Don't! Wu Tsang roared and tried his best to resist, but half of his body was still broken by the punch. Bang! Then, Lu Ming stomped his foot down. Wu Tsang screamed in pain and was torn into pieces. Another second-grade heaven's favorite was killed. However, just like Shui Luozi, after Wu Tsang was killed, another white light enveloped him. Not far away, his body actually condensed again. He looked at Lu Ming with hatred, then trembled and disappeared without a trace. Another destiny talisman. Lu Ming frowned. These second-class geniuses all had the potential to become emperors. The major forces valued them and paid a high price to buy destiny talismans from Tianxia Academy. Almost every second-grade heaven's favorite had a piece. A second-grade heaven's favorite was too important. He had the chance to become an emperor. An emperor could make a force an overlord force and prosper for 10 to 20,000 years. His role was simply too great. He was many times more important than a supreme being. Those overlord forces hoped that they would have a successor. If there was no successor, there would be no new emperor in the future generations, and an overlord force would quickly weaken, such as Medicine King's Valley and the Talisman Sect. In the history of the Divine Wilderness continent, there were countless overlord factions. However, how many of them could continue to prosper and pass down their legacy? Very few. Many of the overlord forces had been weakened because there were no emperors among the latecomers. One could imagine how much the overlord forces valued second-grade geniuses. In the distance, those people gasped and broke out in cold sweat. Lu Ming was too ruthless. He killed a second-grade heaven's favorite just like that. Fortunately, he had the destiny talisman. Otherwise, the Heaven Martial Sword School would have gone crazy. Lu Ming swept a glance at the few of them and ignored them. He returned to the edge of the cliff and continued to comprehend the killing move. Tianxiao Academy was still surrounded by people outside the Wanxiang Jade Wall. High up in the sky, the various supreme martial artists were sitting cross-legged, waiting silently.
Buzz.
Suddenly, a white light flashed and Wu Tsang's figure appeared. Everyone's eyes looked over in unison.
Wu Tsang, it's Wu Tsang.
He's been killed. What kind of danger did he encounter? It seems that the secret realm is really dangerous. I wonder how many of those who didn't have life talismans died? Danger is accompanied by opportunity. If there's something to gain, it's worth it. Many people looked at Wu Tsang and discussed among them Slaviers. Wu Tsang, what's going on? A supreme martial artist from the Tianwu Sword School asked. Wu Tsang didn't dare to not answer the supreme martial artist's question, so he immediately began to explain. A dark-skinned young man with a simple and honest appearance, but extremely cunning. Wu Tsang did not know what Lu Ming's name was, so he described his appearance. What? Wasn't this the same face as Lu Shaoqing? He again. He's really a god of death. First, he killed many experts from Cold Blood Hall, then Blood Luo, and now he killed Wu Tsang. He's really terrifying. He killed so many heaven's favorites. His combat strength is so shocking. I'm afraid he's at the top even among the second-grade heaven's favorites. Many people exclaimed. Cold Blood Hall's people looked gloomy, and Blood Luo, Z gritted his teeth. If you guys are discussing, then go ahead. Why did you have to involunteer them? On the cliff in the secret realm of the Saint Mansion, Lu Ming was studying carefully. Every time the giant eagle returned, he would leave. The next day, when the giant eagle went out to look for food, he would go and comprehend. For 5 consecutive days, he had gained a lot. The mark was not complete. It was only a kind of intent. Lu Ming comprehended 5 killing styles from this intent. Lu Ming named them the 5 killing styles. The 5 slaughter forms didn't have any specific moves. It was just a kind of slaughter concept's usage method. In other words, without slaughter concept, it was completely useless. However, when Lu Ming borrowed the power of the third blood meridian, he could borrow the slaughter concept, and the 5 killing styles could come in handy. Previously, Lu Ming had only borrowed the power of the third bloodline. With the 5 techniques of massacre, it would undoubtedly be more powerful. It's almost time. 5 days later, Lu Ming got up and left. This imprint was not complete, so even if he continued to comprehend it, he would not gain much. Lu Ming left the place and continued to look for opportunities. A day later, Lu Ming arrived at a lush mountain range. Nest, why have all the spirit herbs on the way been dug up? Which bastard did this? Dandan ran around like a gust of wind, cursing and swearing. The spiritual qi in this mountain range was very dense. Ancient trees towered into the sky. Along the way, they found dozens of pits, all left behind by the spiritual herbs that had been dug out. According to Dandan's speculation, they were all left behind by level 8 spirit herbs. His anger had obviously been taken by someone else. They dug too thoroughly. Not a single hair was left. Dandan sighed. Lu Ming was also speechless. They had changed a few positions in this forest, and it was the same. There's someone in front. Suddenly, Dandan widened her eyes and climbed onto Lu Ming's shoulder. Lu Ming concealed his aura and moved forward carefully. In front of him, a figure in white clothes was walking in the air and flashing in the forest. He looked very young from the back, but he was bald and had a round and smooth head. His movement technique was extremely fast, like a gust of wind. In a moment, he appeared in front of a spiritual herb. I have rice hair. Good, good. The bald man groaned, and then waved his sleeve. The spiritual herb left the ground and was collected by him. Could he be a saint monk from the Western Desert? Lu Ming was greatly shocked. Legend had it that the Western Desert was different from other places. They cultivated the Dharma, and the entire Western Desert was mainly focused on the Dharma, with ancient temples everywhere. Looking at the bald man's clothes and the name of Buddha, he was clearly a holy monk of the Western Desert. After the holy monk put away the spirit herbs, he continued forward. Not long after, he came to a dark underground cave and observed it carefully. After a while, he retreated a few miles and took out a round plate. Then, a purple light beam shot up into the sky. Chapter 1074. 1074 Chapter 1074 Heartless Monk. In the hands of Western Desert's Saint Monk, a round plate emitted a purple light that shot up into the sky, piercing through the clouds. It was extremely shocking, and even from far away, it could be seen. After a long while, Western Desert's Saint Monk put away the disc, and the light pillar disappeared. This was because there were many streaks of light flashing over from the distance. Someone had been attracted here. What is this guy trying to do? Lu Ming, who was hiding not far away, saw everything. The holy monk kept the disc and returned to the entrance of the dark cave. He shouted, "The treasure in this cave is mine." After shouting, his figure flashed, and he quickly left the cave. Not long after, more than 10 streaks of light flew over, revealing more than 10 figures. The treasure is in the cave, kill. We can't let anyone else get there first. Get lost, it's mine. More than a dozen experts directly rushed into the cave.
Roar, roar,
Roar. Inside the cave, the wild roars of ferocious beasts came out. The entire ground was shaking, and an intense battle was taking place in the cave. This guy is killing with a borrowed knife. Lu Ming was dumbfounded. Didn't they say that the holy monks of the Western Desert were all kind-hearted and would save all living beings? This guy was too unreliable. Could he be a fake? I have rice hair. Buddha is merciful. That guy chanted the name of Buddha again. His figure flashed, but He did not enter the cave. Instead, he went in another direction. This guy is very mysterious. Let's go and take a look. Lu Ming quietly followed behind the Western Desert Saint Monk and came to a place dozens of miles away. There was a huge cave in this place. At this moment, Lu Ming heard a deafening roar coming from the cave, which gradually faded into the distance. Lu Ming was dumbfounded. He finally understood what this guy's purpose was. This cave was connected to the cave, tens of li away. Western Desert's guy had used the others in that cave to lure the beasts away, so he could easily enter from this cave and find the treasure. How is this a merciful saint monk? This was clearly an unscrupulous monk. The monk sneakily looked around. Lu Ming finally saw his face. She had a baby face, slightly chubby and smooth skin that made women jealous. She was pink and tender, and she looked harmless. He looked around, chanted the name of Buddha, and rushed into the cave. This guy is really not a good person. On his shoulder, Dan looked at him with disdain. Lu Ming pursed his lips and thought, "You are similar to him. There must be some treasure in this cave. Let's go in and take a look." Lu Ming also rushed into the cave carefully. The cave was huge, and after a few thousand meters, it became even wider, like a huge underground cave. In front of them, there were still faint rumbles. It was obvious that the battle was extremely intense. Next, I saw a few pits. There must be spirit herbs growing there, but they were all dug out by that monk. What a pity. Dandan sighed. The two of them moved forward and found that the underground caves were crisscrossed, and the monk's figure had long disappeared. Lu Ming walked forward casually and suddenly stopped. A purple light attracted his attention. On one of the walls, a hazy purple light was emitted. It was hazy and beautiful. Lu Ming circulated his essential core and wiped off the rock on the surface. A purple crystal the size of a longan appeared. These are purple flame crystals. After the initial shock, Lu Ming was overjoyed. The purple flame crystal was a precious material that was extremely rare. It could be used to refine weapons and could also be used to refine pills. It was priceless. The most important thing was that the purple flame crystal was one of the most important main ingredients in refining the Nirvana elixir. It was a level 9 material. Lu Ming did not expect to encounter a purple flame crystal here. He immediately condensed his vital essence into a knife and dug out the surrounding rocks to dig out the purple flame crystal. It's so heavy. A purple flame crystal the size of a dragon's eye, yet it weighed more than 5,000 kilograms. It was truly shocking. I don't know if there are any more. After Lu Ming kept the purple flame crystal, he looked around carefully. It would be great if he could find a few more. Although the Nirvana elixir was not of much use to Lu Ming, it was very useful to others. For example, if Fatty Kong Jin had Nirvana pills, he could even raise his third bloodline to the 9th level of the divine level. His parents, his disciples, Xian Yanqing, and Mulan would all be of great use to him in the future. If there was a chance, Lu Ming wanted to collect the materials and refine a few furnaces. After walking around for a while, Lu Ming indeed discovered something. A purple light was emitting from a wall. Just as Lu Ming was about to dig, a terrifying gust of wind attacked him. Lu Ming was shocked. He turned around and struck out a palm. Bang! A terrifying force gushed toward Lu Ming, and he could not help but take a few steps back. What a tyrannical power! Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Although he did not release his dragon energy just now, his vital essence was extremely robust. In addition to the 5 types of concepts and the prison-suppressing heaven technique, he could kill an ordinary 2nd-level spiritual god realm martial artist with a single palm strike. However, he was now forced to retreat. My hair. A Buddhist chant was heard, and a harmless face appeared in front of Lu Ming. It was the monk. He looked very young in his 20s. He squinted his eyes and smiled. He put his hands together and said, "This benefactor, the fierce beast in this cave, was lured away by a monk's friend. It's not good for you to take advantage of it like this, right?" Even when he spoke, the monk was still smiling. Lu Ming and Dandan looked down on them. Those people were clearly tricked by the monk, but they became his friends in his mouth. How shameless. "Master, everyone who saw it has a share. I saw all of your methods just now. If word gets out, I'm afraid it won't be good for the reputation of Western Desert's Saint Monk." Lu Ming said with a smile. "My hair is white, my Buddha is merciful. I think you have misunderstood, benefactor. A monk should be merciful." The baby-faced monk chanted the name of Buddha. Roar. Tyrant hadn't finished his words when a loud roar was heard. A giant lizard with purple flames lunged at Tyrant.
Buzz.
Tyrant's body glowed with a golden light. He struck out a palm, and a huge golden palm print landed on the purple lizard's body. With a loud bang, the lizard was smashed into pieces. Mercy? Lu Ming was tongue-tied. "My hair is white, my Buddha is merciful." The monk chanted the name of Buddha again and looked at Lu Ming. "Benefactor, this little monk has taken a fancy to this purple flame crystal. Why don't you give it to this little monk?" "So, what if I don't?" Lu Ming said. "My hair is as white as rice, my Buddha." "Hair your head." "I know you don't have hair." Lu Ming shouted and suddenly launched an attack. The dragon power in his body burst out, and his strength increased greatly. He threw a punch at the unscrupulous monk. Wuliang Monk's body shone brightly. The dazzling golden light spread out, making the unscrupulous monk look like the reincarnation of Buddha. He looked solemn. In addition, he had a harmless face. If Lu Ming had not secretly seen him before, he would really think that he was an eminent monk.
Boom.
The heartless monk struck out with his palm, and the golden palm print collided with Lu Ming's fist. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.